What's up, everybody? This is Micah Raygun, and I go for mine. I got to shine. Now throw your hands up in the sky. A few weeks ago, I asked for your input for a little question and answer form that I submitted in a community post because I don't really get to talk with you all much outside of the comments section. If I had a schedule that allowed me to stream, I think we could have a lot of discussion on stream like that. But in lieu of this, I posted a little Q&A form, and I'm very grateful for all of my interactive users who went out and threw a question my way so we could chat like that. I specifically did that as a Google form rather than like, hey, just post a comment below because then I would have read your comments, and I didn't really want to know what was coming at me. Um, so this way we'll have a more authentic conversation, hopefully, where I don't have any rehearsed responses. And to help facilitate this, I have a close personal friend of mine named Luke on the line who will help to be your stand in this conversation. Do you want to say hi to the group, Luke?
Hey guys, I look forward to being able to represent y'all and this awesome community here.
Yeah, let's do it. Yeah, he's Luke has borne witness to my descent into madness as I grew more and more obsessed with Daggerfall over time. But he was with me in high school whenever I developed my obsession with like Oblivion and my disappointment with Skyrim and things like that. So he's seen the full character arc come full circle from a little insecure nerd in high school into a grown man with a razor blade and an obsession with Daggerfall and a YouTube channel in my adulthood. So yeah, I'm looking forward to chatting with you guys about this while I wander the wastes. I wonder if I could go to a dungeon, but then I might be a bit distracted. So maybe we'll just look at the rolling countryside for a while. But yeah, without further ado, how would you like to start the discussion, Luke?
Yeah, so let's get into some of these questions here. Scarf Cat wants to know what other sorts of video games are you into besides RPGs and Elder Scrolls. He also thanks you for inspiring him to start making some commentary videos of his own.
Oh, cool. Well, that's awesome, Scarf Cat. Yeah, I guess I'll start with the end of the comment to be as counterintuitive as possible. But yeah, those first couple videos I uploaded was just like a stream of consciousness sort of thing, and I think a lot of people resonated with that. And it seems like the less you care about your viewership and the numbers, the more inspired you will be to be yourself in this situation. So I'm glad you're out there doing that, Scarf Cat. As far as other video games that I play, um, man, this is a good question. I
Now,
oh,
specifically besides RPGs slash Elder Scroll. So,
Yeah, so it becomes a question of like, what do you categorize as an RPG? And I role play in a lot of the games I play, but ultimately the franchise that I'm most obsessed with, besides Elder Scrolls, it has to be Fire Emblem, just through and through, hands down. I have all of the Fire Emblem Game Boy Advance games that I whip out on my Game Boy Advance SP from now and then. I specifically like Fire Emblem 6, 7, and 8, which are all the Game Boy Advance games. Um, Fire Emblem 5 is Thracia 7076 is probably the best of the games if you're just looking at it from a I don't know if objectivity is the right word. It's so janky but so enjoyable, and I just love that game so much. Um, but the original creator of Fire Emblem, oh man, Kaga Shozo Kaga, I think is his name. He made he and Intelligent Systems who produced Fire Emblem parted ways at some point because his game design was not very. It's kind of a similar paradigm as what you see with Elder Scrolls, where Ted Peterson and Julian LaFay and the things they wanted for the franchise was no longer congruous with what the publisher wanted, and so they had to kind of go do their own thing. In a similar way, Shozo Kaga, after Fire Emblem Thracia 7076, the fifth game in the series, was kind of offboarded from intelligence systems, and he created a little something for the PlayStation 1 called Tearing Saga. And my goodness, that game like really rocked my world. My profile picture is the unit that I grew most fond of during while playing Tearing Saga Blind. His name is Samson, and he was just this absolute unit that I fell in love with. So I like those grid-based strategy games. Um, Besides that, I'm bad at them, but I enjoy fighting games. Like Brawlhalla is quite a bit of fun. I play quite a bit of Magic the Gathering, which is not a video game, but it is a game. And yeah, are there any others that I'm missing, Luke, that I nerd out about a lot?
Well, just to keep it, I don't know, to take the discussion back before we jump into all the games, because you actually like a lot of games. I feel.
Yeah,
Um,
I go through
I
Hotline Miami and like Souls-like games are up there. But yeah, what were you gonna say?
I was just gonna say that I every time someone's ever asked about the whole like RPG thing, the
Yeah,
thing that it's like, are all games role playing games? And so I've always kind of like tried to define that difference. And so like when you're playing Monopoly, aren't you pretending you're some kind of like money tycoon, right?
right,
Or
right.
you know,
Or even like Halo, like you're pretending to be this badass
exactly.
like cybernetic. I think
Yes,
it's kind of
yes.
cyborg. So like um it's
So
tricky
is
to
Fire
define.
Emblem an RPG?
Yeah, I think it's depending on which country you're in, you'll get different responses. In Japan, it's known as a simulationist game because you're simulating this like platoon of soldiers who are going about their business, and like there's this drama going on that kind of sets the tone for the narrative. But yeah, that's a tricky question because some people would call Fire Emblem an RPG. I wouldn't really categorize it like that, but I role play everything, including Fire Emblem. Like I'm like, oh, Samson wouldn't retreat right now. He has a +9 movement. We're just gonna charge in there and start swinging. So
I
yeah,
know, and sometimes going with that attitude in any game just kind of makes the game more interesting. I mean, you could probably
yeah,
role play somehow in Scrabble. I
yeah,
don't know. I don't know how.
yeah. So that is a bit tricky. I could probably just pull up my Steam library and find like a strictly non-RPG game. Um,
Well,
but
I guess
yeah,
like puzzle games come to mind or things like of that nature. Is there any games like that that you enjoy playing?
uh,
Well, you like
uh,
chess, right? You don't?
uh,
Do you role play? Is chess role played, bro?
that's that's a yeah. I don't know. I do enjoy chess, even though I am bad at it. But yeah, role playing is such a broad category that it's really hard to fit into. I do enjoy some FromSoft games, and so I guess a special mention here would go to Sekiro, Shadows Die Twice, and Bloodborne, which I just think are the cream of the crop of those games. My viewers might know that I was picking up Elden Ring, and you know this too, Luke. And I'll say like just real quick, I got back into Elden Ring for a while, and I gotta say I defeated it once and for all. I decided like being good at this game is not worth the time investment that it would take to like complete the game, so I stopped playing it again, and I don't think I'll ever pick it back up. So sorry if that's a disappointment to my viewers and all that, but once I got to this point where I had like these three really hard bosses and like no willpower to get better at fighting any of them, I was like, who is this for? In fact, which is what happened the last time. Hold on, we got a bogey on our tail, punk ass
Is
mountain
that when you
lion.
dug deep down and did it for your son?
Yeah, it's like, if you're not really enjoying this video game, and I say this all the time on my channel, I feel like, but we have such a precious little amount of time on this earth. Like, do I really want to spend it playing a game that I don't really like? You know what I mean? I really like the exploration in Elden Ring, like going from one zone to the next and exploring all that I can and finding secrets like that. And beyond that, like I just don't actually enjoy the boss fights that much. Maybe because like yeah, like if I had discovered Bloodborne after Hudson was born, I probably wouldn't enjoy it that much either because the bosses are so like some people call Elden Ring the easiest of the FromSoft games, and like I don't know if I agree with that, but Bloodborne and Sekiro were so tilting. So maybe it's just a timing thing, but yeah, I like FromSoft games a lot. Some people call those RPGs, but I'm like, I think we found our way back to the dungeon that I was just in. This is actually the first dungeon I went to on this channel, so we'll poke our head in and see what happens. Um,
On a
but
similar note,
yeah.
Luis Duarte asked, "Why is your profile pic Samson from Tearing Saga?" So apparently they know what's up, bro.
Okay, so whenever you play Kaga Saga, that's what like some people call these older Fire Emblem-esque games. Whenever you play Kaga Saga, you're stepping into it knowing like by the time you boot up the game, you have this huge point of inflection. Do I use a guide to know what is ahead of me or not? And Tearing Saga, like Thracia 7076, is full of a lot of obscure like character interactions and events that you don't like. Kaga will kind of telegraph to you what's coming, and what to prepare for, but largely I didn't know what I was doing. I missed a lot of recruitment, a lot of cool things that happened, like Plum, that cool thing that happens with Plum after those traumatic scenes. It never happened for me. She was just a staff user, you know, um, and so I was missing a lot of really, really strong characters. That Dark Knight that you recruit in like chapter 6 or something like that, whenever you're the same chapter where you get Marouge, I missed him. Um, you know, so I was missing characters left and right, but the game just straight up gives you Samson like on a silver platter. And I don't know if he's like, I guess you kind of have to earn him because his chapter is surprisingly tricky. Um, because it looks pretty straightforward, but those corridors, man, it'll really mess you up. Um, but yeah, Samson was given to me, and I don't know if I haven't looked up his growth rates or anything, but he just had tremendous HP, strength, speed, and like body, which, um, you know, he was just a unit, and I missed so many good characters. And Samson is given a lot of great weapons, like the Brave Axe, and that axe that reduces the amount of damage you take by like half. And he has that weapon, even though it reduces the amount of damage you take by half, it slows you down by 20, which is a huge penalty, but he was still doubling people because he is such a monster. And I went to the certain chapter that is not recommended by some people. It's like a little route split. But I ended up getting this bonus to speed, or a bonus to movement, rather. So he went from having 6 movement to 9 movement. And on certain terrain maps, he would have 10 movement, and he was just an absolute powerhouse that just like carried me because I just missed all the good units, right? And so I walked into that one. So yeah, Samson carried me, and I'm just so grateful for him for that because I literally think I would have soft locked my tiering saga game because of my obstinance of not using a guide. I did not have that many good characters, but you know what? I had Samson. So yeah, uh, that's what that's about. Uh,
Feels like you're not over him, man.
I haven't replayed it. I have not replayed Tearing Saga since playing it blind, and I've been meaning to, but it's quite the time investment. But I'm looking forward to replaying it and knowing what I'm doing some. But he just gets so many good stats and good weapons. He's just the man, dude. It's such a giga chad. Look at the jawline on Samson. My goodness. And he has a cool little background that gets revealed also. So yeah, I love Samson. Mage is kind of scary. Yeah, good question. I think it's so cool how many viewers actually recognize a profile picture because I set that up as like a stand-in. I didn't know that was gonna be representing me because I never really planned on having a YouTube channel, but here we are. I'm almost dead. I should just go back outdoors real quick. Uh,
Um,
but yeah, really cool that people recognize him.
Solaris underscore CC is curious about your music taste. This user says that they have a similar taste in other aspects. So,
Okay. Um, what's up, Solaris? I think I remember chatting with you in the comments section of our video recently, so very glad to see you in this Q&A. Um, I listen to like a wide. This is such a terrible answer. I listen to a wide variety of stuff, but I usually default to like indie folksy stuff is just my jam in general. So generic white boy in that aspect. But like my favorite artist of all time is this group called Fishmans. I don't know how you're supposed to pronounce it, but they're like this Japanese reggae group from the '90s who developed into something like a predecessor for modern indie music, and they have a wide variety of really great albums that showcase their different capacity to play in different genres. My favorite one is Ikareta Baby. Oh no, that's a song. The album is called Neo Yankees Holiday. So if you were to be like, oh, let's see what Micah's talking about, go look up Neo Yankees Holiday, listen to like Paradise or Ikareta Baby. They also have this really cool album called Oh Mountain. All right, and it's not really an album, it's more like a compilation of their music that they recorded live and gave studio treatment to. And like if I can't think about what to listen to, I just put on Oh Mountain and it just oh, look at this. This is a modded enemy right here. Yeah, besides that, I love Fishmans, but I also like a lot of like what you would call classic rock, like this morning while I was cooking breakfast for Hudson and me and my wife and stuff, I was singing a lot of Jim Croce and Simon and Garfunkel. And
is that how it's pronounced, Croce?
That's how my mom pronounced it, and she is, you know, bless her heart, she is the least reliable person about these things. But like, she was at least she's older than me, so I count her as credible for the pronunciation here. But it's Croce. That's how she pronounced it. I'm just gonna say Jim Croce because
I thought it was
she,
Croche or Croc or I don't know. Maybe
I,
I've confused myself now.
I'm confused about it too. But I like a lot of that 60s and 70s, what you'd call like singer-songwriter music, like Bob Dylan. Um, Besides that, as a young Houstonian or former Houstonian at least, like I really enjoy Southern rap. Outcast is probably if I had to choose like a non-indie or non-folk artist to be my favorite, it would have to be Outcast. Um, Southern Playalistic, Cadillac Music, AT Aliens, and Equemini. Like I don't think hip hop can get better than that. Frankly, like I think we peaked right there. Uh, some one of the person in my comments noticed that I started off one of my videos with another Kanye West quote. What was it? Um, it's the beginning of Through the Wire. Oh yeah, I drink a boost for breakfast and Insure
An
for
intro for
dessert.
dessert.
Yeah. So yeah, I really love Kanye West's first three albums. Luke has kept up with Kanye West quite a bit more than I have, and I'm in this like position with a lot of music where I just listen to the music I like for the most part and often don't branch out. And so like, Luke has tried to put me on a bunch of music that I probably haven't and maybe won't because I'm just such a comfort zone kind of guy. But yeah, I listen to a lot of hip hop, folksy music, and chip tunes. Anime and Gucci, Slime Girls, that sort of thing, and video game soundtracks, of course. So I think I covered a lot of my bases there. I'm leaving out a ton, of course, but I think I covered a lot of bases there. Did I?
There was I used to feel ashamed for being into like I don't know like chiptune music. I don't know why it made me feel weebish for some reason. Maybe it was because of Anime Gucci. but
Maybe, and that's a valid feeling to acknowledge that it'll make you feel weebish, but it's not valid to be ashamed of your weebishness.
no, well, that I think about like we went to that Anime Gucci concert when they came to Houston that one time.
Yeah,
That was an incredible experience
that
actually.
that was actually one of the concerts where I found out that I like to dance. I wasn't really sure about that. I went to Band's Warped Tour in 2012 and saw Streetlight Manifesto, a ska punk band that I still really like. And I was like, oh, okay. I kind of like. I found out that mosh pits like don't have to be angry and violent. We just kind of ran around in a circle saying "oi, oi" to the beat, and I learned there that I like to dance. And then I really applied that knowledge at the Anime concert, and that I think it was at like I don't remember the venue, and it's honestly not important. Um, but there's like a balcony, right, where some of our friends were hanging out while I was dancing, and they were playing Spot the Micah, because like they were trying to keep up with me as I was frantically dancing about in the
Oh
pit and
yeah,
stuff.
I was just about to say we were I was out there with John, and then John just like Luke look, and he's pointing at all I see. You must have been on top of the shoulders of some 6 foot tall dude who was
Yeah,
just
yeah.
carrying
Oh,
you.
yeah, that's true. That's my buddy Josh, right? I'm pretty sure, like, yeah, that was an interesting concert in that it united two friend groups of mine. We had a bunch of friends I knew from calculus class, like Luke, and friends I smoked a ton of weed with, like like my friend there. And so I united my stoner group and my school group, like in a kind of harmonious way there. That was really fun.
It was
Uh,
beautiful.
yeah, that was a really good time. Yeah, I
Yeah, and these questions always lead to the more important question. I think it's great that we have an idea of what your tastes are in music and the music that you grew up with, but you were young and deep and philosophical at one point. Do you have any of those like cringe likes that you remember like, oh, I remember I used to think this band or this artist was like just the best, and then I
uh,
grew up and was like, oh.
to be raw and unfiltered about this question, there is this song on a Naruto AMV that I used to not want to like a lot called Headstrong. Headstrong, I'm gonna take you on. And it's like really bad, but I liked it and I hated that I liked it. So there's that.
I think I
Um,
felt the same way about the Bleach original soundtrack OST.
yeah. I mean, on the one hand, it's like I don't want to feel ashamed for the things I like, but on the other hand, it's like, oh, come on, man. Like
Sometimes
it's
it's that shame that holds our society together. It's like we if
yeah.
we let these guys indulge and enjoy this too much,
it's just
It's
gonna get
just
out
gonna
of
get too
hand.
weird.
Like
Yeah,
we have to have
exactly.
some respect for ourselves. So it's, yeah, enjoy it, but enjoy it with some like healthy amount of shame. There's a bit in Daria where Quinn Morgendorfer is like, it's okay to be ashamed, but it's not okay to be ashamed of your shame, or something like that. And I'm like, she's so stupid, but that's so good.
It
um,
sounds like a Brad Neely quote for some reason. I don't know why. It sounds like something
yeah,
like Baby Cakes would say.
it's not okay to be ashamed of your shame. Yeah, that was. I have a lot of concert stories, and so the Anamanaguchi or music taste question is a fun one for that reason. Um, one time, that's gonna be a huge tangent. I hope y'all don't mind if I meander a lot in this video, but I went to a Danny Brown concert because I like that kind of ratchet rap as well. My friend had brought in a lot of illicit substances, and I was kind of feeling myself. I would like hang out with my friend group for a while, and then whenever I had like recovered my breath, I would disappear to the mosh pit because it's a rap concert that has a mosh pit. That's what Danny Brown does. Um, but basically, I would give my glasses to my friends who I took to the concert, and then I would disappear. And like while I was dancing, some glasses fell down on the ground, and I was like, "Oh crap, my glasses!" And I went to pick them up. And this guy, the bearer of the glasses, really thought that I was trying to fight him, that I was trying to steal his glasses, his like prescription glasses. And he was really upset about it, and I didn't know how to explain the misunderstanding. Like I think if I had a chance to talk to him, I'm like, oh no, you see, I was just high, and I thought they were my glasses. I didn't mean to take your things. It's so funny, guy. Let's just get a beer after this. No, he was just angry and thought someone was trying to steal his prescription glasses. But I didn't know how to explain it, so I just kind of danced away. Because like,
And
what do you do
that's
there?
that devil rap music that your mama warned you about.
Yeah,
That's what
man,
happens.
it
Get some violent.
possesses you to like steal prescription glasses. Yeah, so in case that guy's listening to this, I apologize for like accidentally trying to lay hands on your glasses. It was not my intention. But also, you shouldn't bug out like that at this, like, use your common sense some. All right, that's the worst apology in the world.
Sorry, I can't help it, but you reminded me of this one time I was in Austin. I was on Bourbon Street and just walking back to like a dorm with a friend of mine, and we saw a dude get hit by a car.
Dude, what the hell?
Yeah, we saw a dude get hit by a car. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I like tell my friend, hey, you just wait here, maybe call the police, something. I'm gonna go help. And by get hit by a car, I mean the car just hit
It's
him. He
slow,
rolled
right?
off. Yeah, it
Yeah.
was more like a tackle, like you
Yeah.
got tackled by a car more so than like get ran over by a car.
Yeah, if it's like a downtown street like that, it's not very fast typically.
Right, but certainly enough to blow him, like knock him back on his butt, kind of stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
Anyways, so I go over there to help him, and his hat, he was wearing like a fit, the fitted cap with the I have, like the sticker still on it to let you know that it's fresh
Oh
from
yeah.
the lid store or whatever. Anyways, pick up the cap, and I'm handing it to him as I'm trying to help him up off the ground, ask if he's okay. And he's just like, "Don't touch my hat, bro."
Oh my gosh. Dude, people get so combative over their possessions. And the hat, okay, that one's stupid. Glasses, I can kind of understand because like you need those for survival's sake. But bro,
But
okay, you're
he
right.
was
You're right.
he was obviously inebriated, and
Yeah,
at that point I almost, well, I won't say I felt bad for the guy, but it was like I'm in no danger here. He just got
yeah.
hit by a car.
Yeah, y'all fools got to go out and do y'all thing, right? I think that Gangstalicious says that. Is what it reminds me of some there. I'm actually in some danger here, but I'm trying not to use a potion. We'll see if I get away with it. Okay, we're gonna use a potion. All right, yeah. Did I miss anything with Solaris's question? Was there anything
No, I
else?
think no, I think you got it. I mean, I think also like we were in band together. I think you definitely still have some taste for like classics or like classical music, orchestrated music, which you is probably fulfilled through like listening through like soundtracks
That's
to
right,
video games and stuff, right?
Jeremy
So
Souls for the most part. Although while I was reading East of Eden, I listened to this like acoustic guitar instrumental mix on Spotify called like Peaceful Guitar or something, and I grew very very fond of that style. Dude, I'm getting blasted over here. I just want to get back to my campfire. Um, so whenever the mood strikes, I'll listen to something orchestral, but it's largely like what you'd call chamber music that's inspired by Jeremy Soule. Like, I know that he got Me Too'd and all that, but his music is just, it'll never die,
I mean, yeah, you think about the legacy of like some of the greatest composers. I can't remember Wagner. I mean, he was straight up like, I'm pretty sure he was beyond Nazi sympathizer. I think he was literally composing for Hitler and stuff. And I mean, his music is still
It
played
slaps.
like
Yeah.
that. Like that didn't happen.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, I'm so obsessed with the Oblivion soundtrack that I played in my classroom whenever I was a teacher. Anytime I'm reading, I'm like, oh, what should I listen to? Oh, obviously Oblivion soundtrack. It's so clear. So yeah, I definitely have a taste for some classical music still. It makes me wish I had a trombone still. I played trombone in band, y'all. I wish I had it just to like thug it out with that once in a while. Not that there's like a really practical way to use it without the rest of the band, but still.
All right, let's see. Goblinoid has a simple but fun question here. What is your favorite D&D class and why?
Ooh, ooh. Uh, it really depends on which version of Dungeons and Dragons you're talking about. So I'm going to talk about the four archetypes that are associated with like
You
old
couldn't make
school
this easy for
D&D.
us, could you? You couldn't just give us an answer.
No, no, I'm gonna 1 hour later I'll be halfway through the question. I really like fighters and thieves, and it's hard to pick a favorite between those two. Um, if I had to, I would say fighter, because like a fighter has his wits, his weapons, and his like strength, and besides that, he has his team, and like that's just the dream for me. That's my favorite basically. Um, I really like thieves, as you all know. Like I've told the story on the channel before about how I got arrested in high school for stealing Magic the Gathering cards, and how I'm still a bit of a klepto, but I'm well adjusted, so I fight the impulse to pocket stuff whenever I can. But the
Now he
thrill of
just steals the hearts of ladies.
yes, once they find out that you're married and like a good father, like they are instantly like they're just saying, "Sign me up, Mister."
I was more attracted to you.
It's just the way it goes, man. Once you're taken, it's like that's why George Costanza wore a wedding ring in that episode of Seinfeld.
Oh my gosh, yes.
But yeah, I really like fighters and thieves. Um, but special mention has to be made for clerics. Like it's really cool to I don't know, just to channel the power of divinity in a way that like overcomes the meta of like how do we get past these undead encounters? It's really fun. Uh, as far as old school D&D is concerned, a lot of dungeon masters would like you roll for the spell that's in your spell book, and so I really like magic users who play like that, because a lot of the times whenever you play a caster, part of the fun is spending a lot of time fleshing out your spell book, but I don't really like to do that. I just like to see. I think it's fun to be given your spells that you're going to use and think, what can I do with this information? And then it becomes kind of a goal to uncover other spells as you go.
That's
Um,
kind of how college works when you think about it.
what do you mean?
What do I do with this information?
Yeah. At least you get to choose your major there, depending on like I don't know. Some people would argue that your natural aptitudes, if those exist, kind of steer you in one direction or another. Um, but for those
Is
out there
that
who
is the implication that you people may have non-natural aptitudes, or
Uh, the implication is that like you have, I would say, rather than natural aptitudes, you have an affinity for something. Like, am I actually good at writing, or do I just get joy from writing? Am I actually good at math, or do I enjoy solving math equations? You know what I mean?
oh, okay. I think yeah, no, that's a beautiful distinction I hadn't considered.
Yeah, that's just what I meant there. I have some people in my family that would say that talent doesn't exist. You have just like things that you have an affinity for that you pursue, and I'm not sure where I feel about it, but um, to give some credence to fifth edition Dungeons and Dragons, since that's most popular, um, the thief class is simply my bread and butter. I could play the thief all day, every day, especially with the I guess it's called a rogue, and the thief subclass is what I'm talking about. The one that can use the bonus action to use an item. You get into so many hijinks with that stuff. You can like throw marbles down on the ground as a bonus action. You can slick the ground with oil using a bonus action. You can try to pull down somebody's pants, arguably would involve an attack roll, wouldn't happen, with a bonus action. You can pull a lever crunk with a bonus action. That's just that the thing about the thief archetype in or
This
subclass.
sounds more like a Bugs Bunny cartoon at this point.
That's the spirit, man. in a previous video, I talked about how I think your inventory is the most important part of your character sheet, and the thief subclass of the rogue in fifth edition is the one that allows this distinction to be impactful in fifth edition. Because otherwise, you're focused on your skills and your abilities. But whenever you're a thief subclass, you're like, what can I do with all this stuff? Oh, dude, I'm poisoned. You're like, what can I do with the stuff that's in my inventory? And it feels a bit more like old school play for that reason.
I'm just
Uh,
thinking you have a dozen bananas on you at all time, both for like feeding,
oh
healing
yeah,
purposes, but also
we're
just for the
peeling out.
hijinks.
Yeah, yeah. Um, and of course, I'm indecisive, so I also like playing a um, fighter battle master. I kind of think that no other fighter is a very good choice just because of how versatile the battle master is with the like superiority dice and the different maneuvers you can choose. Like they're not bad or anything, but as far as my playstyle is concerned, I just love the superiority dice and like, you can have a whole slew of different characters and sub archetypes based on which maneuvers you choose for your battle master. Special mention goes to bards, but I actually prefer playing bards that are not casters. Like, I'm just a guy that has a guitar. I once played a character named Franz Gorst, who was a human fighter who had like a trumpet, and like he seemed like I role played him like a bard, but he didn't cast, and like that's fine. You know what I mean? So
Yeah,
um,
so it's kind of funny. Like, do you think that like a delicious in dungeon has like I love the way they depict like a fighter, right?
oh,
Like
dude, yes. It's kind of they feel more like Laos, however you say his name, Rayos. It feels more like an OSR kind of fighter because um, I don't know why I say that, probably because the anime
they
just
kind of
looks
make
like
the
an
fighter
OSR.
also a leader, not just a grunt, right?
Yeah, yeah, he's on the front lines and he's making tough decisions and like showing some leadership elements. And that's part of what makes fighters so cool, especially if they have high charisma. They just do really well. Um, by the way, we have to talk about the more recent Delicious and Dungeon episodes after this, whenever we're done recording. Um,
Absolutely.
but yeah, those I
Yeah,
like
we're
all those.
definitely painting this picture that we're weebs. This is like literally the only two anime things I'm into, for the record. And me defending it harder is only making it worse. So
Yeah, yeah.
I'm just
Which is fine. Just don't be ashamed of your shame. You know what I mean?
thanks. I
Uh,
just need that reminder.
Yeah. But more importantly, like more than all the classes, my favorite role in the RPG is the dungeon master. I just um
Yearn for control.
I yearn for control. This is like my toxic trait is I really think that I'm like have a good imagination and like know what the players want in the moment and synthesize those qualities pretty well. I make blunders often too, as much as the next guy does. But yeah, I just really love being the dungeon master, and I think part of it is like my love language is acts of service. That's like top of my list. That's why I love doing laundry and cooking and doing the dishes and things like that. Um, but I also just love to be the guy that allows like for a good time to happen with my friends. Um, so yeah,
Yeah,
more than
when
all
you
the
DM for us,
classes.
I definitely felt like you made like a big effort to make the story enjoyable for us, not just like there was certainly an emphasis on making an enjoyable and entertaining story above just like raw like we're trying to complete a task or make something happen or get something done. Like it
Right.
didn't feel like it was just a series of checks. It felt like it was um, just a good. It was just a great story. I really enjoy whenever you DM.
Yeah, I appreciate it. And it's a collaborative effort all the time and like some DMs are so into what they're doing that they forget that like we need player agency to be a vital factor. Like we'd be playing video games all the time. Oh gosh, I'm getting zapped by something. We would only play video games if it weren't for the vital importance of player agency. Um, here's a torch I can light. So yeah,
How would you?
I go ahead.
No, no. I'm sorry. I thought you were moving into something else. Please can finish your thought.
The last thing is like Luke played whenever I played fifth edition's Dungeons and Dragons more than anything. I'm not sure if that's an important distinction, but I feel like what you experienced was a bit more on the rails than what I normally do these days. But I think we did it in such a way that we still had plenty of freedom too. But we don't need to dwell on that much further.
Uh, so I think it's time for a little bit more of a little more personal question. Be lovely. That's the user here. They have a few different questions here. I'm just gonna like pick through some of them.
Cool.
Here's one that was interesting. Have you ever gone through a rough breakup? And if so, what advice do you have for someone who feels jaded afterwards? I think
Oh boy.
this is
Well,
beautiful. Yeah.
Luke knows all about it. He was there through the yeah. Okay, so my high school girlfriend, I was attached to the hip to the lady, and we had a kind of toxic relationship. But she was like the first girl that I wasn't friend zoned by. You know, I'm a little guy, so I'm a little guy. I'm nerdy, and so I often would like yearn for girls that just weren't into me. And this was the first one that like reciprocated, right? Um, but you know, she struggled with loyalty. Let's just leave it at that. And eventually, I got tired of putting up with that, and you know, called things off. And I had a really rough time with it after that. And what advice do I have for bad breakups? Because I haven't had one since then. Really, I just had a successful marriage, which is fine. Those are good to have. Um, but I think ultimately, whenever you have a really bad breakup, you saw your partner as an integral part of your life, and it's like that Fleetwood Mac song where Stevie Nicks says like, "Oh yeah, the landslide. I built my life up around you. Like, what would I do without you?" Sort of thing. And you really have to find out who you are as an individual and like lean into the things that are like what made this person attracted to you in the first place. Like, what do your friends like about you? What do you like about you? You know, I another toxic trait of mine. I think that like personal fitness is just like vital to our mental well being. And so if you're going through a hard time with the breakup, just bro, work out, go rock climbing, go for a run. Um, you know, try
Hey,
to learn a
for the
new.
record, taking care of one's physical fitness is not a toxic trait. That's a good thing.
Yeah, it's just I'm cognizant of times whenever I might step on someone's toes for saying like you have to be fit to like survive and be happy. It's not true, but I found myself becoming way more confident and like liking myself a lot more whenever I started working out and like getting compliments from people. And if you have a rock climbing gym near you, I'm so sorry to just shield this hobby to my dying breath, but I can't like speak highly enough about how athletic things in general, like how they awaken a confidence in yourself because you have a measurable indication of your success. And like, yeah, it feels bad whenever you lose. It feels bad whenever you don't successfully complete a route that you've been trying for weeks. But the moments when you triumph and like, I don't know, you soar so close to the sun and you're so proud of yourself in those moments that I think that physical fitness and enjoying some physical hobby, um, and if you're not in a place to lift weights or go rock climbing, then just go to a trail and get outdoors. I mentioned it in my last Let's Play video, but like touching grass, as pejorative as it sounds, it is crucial for our psyche, I think, to get outdoors. And so, yeah, if you're having a rough breakup, I would really suggest like learning to love yourself before counting on someone else's love because their love is finite. Even if you love each other to your dying breath, that person might die before you, and what are you going to do then? You know what I mean? So doing things to like feel to like I don't know to love yourself and to be confident in yourself is pretty vital in my opinion. I actually wasn't in a very good spot during my breakup. Like I was struggling with my probation all the time. I was struggling with substance abuse. Like yeah, I don't think that marijuana is inherently a terrible thing, but it certainly can be abused, and I was abusing the shit out of it, guys. And so like you know, be careful about your coping mechanisms because they can become your like they can really overtake your life if you're not careful.
Yeah, I was just
Um,
gonna say that, like, this person that you found, hey, and this is no, you weren't the perfect person during that time either. So
yeah,
we don't
definitely.
have to make it a you versus them kind of thing. But I mean, I was gonna say, if this person is finding you in a place where you're not self confident, it's like you say, this is the first person. Obviously, Mike, I've known you for a long time. You were friends with some of the pretty girls, and that's what it was. You just like, well, why is it always a friendship, right? And
Yep,
so,
yep. It's because
and
yep,
so
yep. I remember it all too clearly.
I was just gonna say that, like, like, but if there's like a lack of confidence there, the irony is your beautiful wife, uh, and your lovely child, they, they didn't fall in love with all the things that made you charming. You always possessed. You always had that, even whenever you were in high school. And you know, it just takes sometimes it takes us some time to realize we have those things and to appreciate it. And also when you develop that little fatty, you know, when you're trying to do all that rock climbing stuff, and you
Uh
start you
huh.
start seeing yourself in the mirror, that doesn't hurt.
It certainly does not hurt, and those are really nice words of wisdom for our commenter here. What was her name? B or their name? I don't know. Their was B or something
uh,
like that.
be lovely.
Be lovely. Yeah, thanks for that. Y'all, Luke has been like my counselor over the years, and so whenever he asks me questions about my personal advice, he probably has a better response. But like, he's totally right. Like the things that people like appreciate about me, my maybe my laid back nature or my dumb puns.
You're
Um,
just funny, Michael. Let's just come on.
I
You're like one of the funniest
yeah,
guys I know.
I like to smile, and I really like to see others smile. You have like be lovely. Like you may not have those exact qualities, but you have other qualities that people are going to cherish about you, and like, um, yeah, just work on yourself in the meantime because you already have plenty going on for you. Get yourself a hobby. You know, that's something that you can say, I'm good at this thing. I commit myself to this thing. Get some exercise in there, and like the more I don't know if I can get out of this pit, by the way. The more confident you are in yourself, the more that's going to, attract others. Unless also don't want it too bad. You know what I mean? Because the moment you start like being a bit desperate, it's kind of has a repulsion mechanism. So remember to like have a loving relationship with yourself, and then everything else will follow in suit.
That is so true. That's 100% true. I remember after I through a bad breakup, you know, it'd been for a while, and it was probably time for me to start getting over it. My mom walked in my room, and she's like, "Look, you can be fat or you can be sad, but you can't be both." So if you're, so she's like, girls don't want you if you're fat and sad. So like you mean, so
That's
she was
hilarious,
like,
dude.
yeah, she was like, so either get happy and fat, you know, girl like a funny fat dude. She's like, or you better hit the gym and be miserable. So pick which one you want to do.
That's hilarious.
Yeah, I mean, you know, of course, she said it. She said it. It was perfect the way she put it, and I knew what she meant.
She
You
has a
know.
kind of dry wit to her. Like you wouldn't. She's. I can imagine her saying it with a very stone face.
Oh yeah, it was
Yeah. So
awesome.
that's part of the hilarity of it is how it's like the unsuspecting humor that washes up against you whenever you're talking to her is really funny. But yeah, be lovely. I hope you bounce back from it. It's not the end of the world, you know. It's just the end of that relationship, and it's probably for the best.
There's a few other questions from BB Lovely that we'll probably circle around to, but let's get a little more lighthearted here.
Sure.
Lazy Bum 965 wants to know what part of North Texas did you grow up in?
Oh, so I actually grew up in the Houston area, on the east side of Houston. But what happens is I was in college at this place called Stephen F. Austin State University, the deep East Texas. And I met a pretty girl there, and she liked me, and grew attached to each other. And whenever we got married, we moved closer to her family rather than mine because my family is a disjointed, traumatic mess, and her family is a bit more put together. I'm actually, let's just say I'm in the South Dallas area right now. A place where I like to rock climb is called the Nolan River. And maybe you can like surmise my vicinity from there. You could probably see my IP address if you're careful enough, and you could do it that way too. But yeah, I grew up in East Houston, and more recently moved toward Dallas. And in between that, I lived in Denver, Colorado for a good 2 years until, yeah, Hudson showed up on the earth. Yeah, it's. I hope it answers the question pretty well. I think there's a kind of rivalry between these towns that I don't think need to exist because wherever you end up, generally speaking, you can make it your home. You know what I mean? I want to go to the coastline out here, by the way, and see if we can just walk along the beach.
Here's an interesting. Well, first off, here's an interesting username. Robust Nut asks. Yeah. Oh, excuse me.
You gotta love it.
Have you ever been to another country or somewhere very remote in the U.S. for an IRL adventure? So I'm gonna add a little bit to this question here. Uh, I like that. I know you've had some in real life adventures, so maybe first we'll hit the technicality of the question and see if you've been to any other countries. But then you should definitely tell us about some of your adventures.
Well, Luke, I'm a humble man of humble means. So I actually have not traveled very far outside of Texas. The furthest north I've traveled is Denver, Colorado. The furthest east I've ever traveled is Florida. The furthest south I've ever traveled is Laredo, and that's like the north side of the border. So I've never actually traveled outside of the United States. Laredo is as close as it gets, and while we're talking about Laredo, I gotta say I gotta have a special shout out for these South Texas towns that do not like require you to speak English to get by. I think that's pretty cool because monolingualism I think is the most uh, one of the most sad things about being an American. There's plenty to speak of on that front, um, but I always thought it was like really cool how bilingual people or multilingual people like it's a really cool mode of operation. How some words and phrases work better for different contexts than others. I think it's a very beautiful thing, and I'm almost like kind of envious of people that got to be multilingual because of their upbringing. So if you were to live in Laredo, Texas, you would have a very strong mastery of Spanish and probably a very good like knowledge of English as well because it's helpful for you to know both of those things to survive. Whereas in many other places in the U.S., it's not really a requirement to survive to like speak multiple languages. Um, so yeah, I have
Man,
not
half
traveled
those European
internationally.
countries, they're always speaking like at least two, right? So
Yeah, and it's not because like they just like their curriculum forces it upon them necessarily, but they are in close proximity to other, countries that speak different languages. And so it's like important for their survival and their affluence as citizens to be multilingual, where that's not really a thing for us. Yeah, so lucky them. Europe gets all the good stuff: public transportation, walkable cities. Um,
I
anyway,
think in Houston, you just gotta like know the different levels of hood you need to speak, and then proper
yeah,
English, and then
Yeah, for what it's worth, we do have like a lot of fascinating dialects in the United States. I used to run from my Southern heritage some and think that like, oh, Hicks are so embarrassing and racist and homophobic and this, that, and the other. But Southern heritage is actually very broad and very multicultural. Um, especially if you get closer to like, I don't know, like the culture you'll find in the Houston or Galveston area is very different from the culture you'll find in Dallas, which is very different from the culture you'll find in like El Paso or Laredo, and so um,
also
it
Texas is freaking huge. So
Texas is huge. You could fit like 3 European countries in here and still have room to spare. So that's like another reason why I started growing a bit more fond of Texas, is that it's kind of diverse in its biomes and its cultures, and that's cool in its own way. Um, as far as IRL adventures are concerned, people that have watched the channel for a while know that I'm a big fan of um, urban fantasy and urban exploration. And like the reason why I like Amomancy so much, my urban like adventure system, is it makes you realize that your life is teeming with adventure and mystery. You just probably are desensitized to it, and if you poke your head out of the rut that you form in your routine a bit, you're likely to find things that inspire you to you'll find evidence of stories, I guess I should say, and you're either going to make your own stories, you're going to wonder what happened here and begin to create your own stories to fill in those gaps. And my buddy Gabe and I used to do this all the time whenever we were in college. We would go to this bar called Flashback in Nacogdoches. We would drink a couple rum and cokes, and then we would start walking, and we'd go to this. One of my favorite things to do was to go to the Brigade Creek, is I think what it is called, and we would walk across this pipe that spanned across the creek and then get to these railroad tracks and follow the railroad tracks and just see where the day took us. And I always thought that sort of thing was like a ton of fun. Um, I probably have more stuff that I could share, but what about you, Luke? Do you do any IRL adventuring like that?
uh well, I have been outside the country. I don't know. There's been a lot of it. My life has had a few adventures, but these adventures I don't know if they've been adventures because of like geographical reasons. Um,
Okay.
to make a I guess to not divulge a bunch of personal information, one time there were two kids at my church who were displaced because of COVID. And so my wife and I opened up our home to them, and they came to stay with us for a while. And I had no idea that relationship would turn into something so complicated, beautiful. Uh, some of the most like heartbreaking things that have ever happened through that. Some of the most fulfilling things in my life that have that would be like my version of adventure. I feel like that's a cop out answer, but that
No,
like if
no, no,
someone
not at
yeah.
all. Your interpersonal relationships are certainly an adventure, and it's funny because you never know when you're going to meet the person that's going to change the like the scheme of your life or the schemata, the layout of it completely.
Right,
Um,
because it was a completely different paradigm shift when that happened, and I think that's why the term adventure comes directly to mind. It's like life as I
right.
knew it was different now, and certainly different for the better.
Yeah, definitely. By the way, I hear Hudson waking up, so I'm gonna try to keep recording and see if they will let us do our thing. But if not, you might hear some babbling in the distance. Another adventure that I liked to go on, I mentioned it in a previous episode, but the first time I went climbing outdoors was a really, really fun thing where I found myself at a river. I could see where I needed to go climb and boulder for a bit, but I didn't know how to get there, and so I ended up just like kicking my shoes off and trying not to fall across I crossed the river and forded it, and that was just a lot of fun, almost intoxicating. Um, yeah, and besides that, we were forced to do like a lot of adventures while traveling from Colorado to Texas to visit family and things like that. So, um, ultimately, I wish I could travel more, but because I've always been a little bit limited in my income, I have not been able to. It's also not really a priority for me, and so I've learned how to be like how to view my environment around me with a lot of like I don't know. I tried to return to the childlike wonder that I knew as a child as often as I can. Um, I'm very proud of the people on Instagram that get to travel to European countries and see all those beautiful things, but I also don't think that we who are stuck in smaller confines are much worse off without that kind of travel. You know, humans for millennia were kind of landlocked or region locked, so to speak. Um, so it's not really a requirement, but I do hope I can travel to Europe. And if we didn't have like family ties, like a support system in Texas, my wife and I would be trying to find all sorts of ways to move to European countries or Japan or something like that. To be honest.
Yeah, it's when you mentioned that at I play Legacy here in like the Houston Magic scene, and I met a guy who's been to all seven continents and about 50 different countries so far. And what amazed me was how normal this person was. I mean, that's a pretty spectacular thing. I'm sure like not many people do what this person has done,
Hmm.
but it was kind of a reminder that like even the fulfillment that comes from like going to all these places and seeing all these things, it's like they're still normal people. Like we all have like a desires for the same stuff. We're all kind of satisfied by the same things, scared of the same stuff. And
Right.
so, not to discount those experiences. That sounded like amazing. He said that penguins smell really bad because he's been to Antarctica. But so I'm sure that's an amazing. That's he got to tell me firsthand, and getting to experience something like that firsthand is something. But I think that we do ourselves a disservice if we think that we're missing out on something essential if we don't get to experience those things, right?
Right, right. And you know, I hope one day I can have the means to travel like that, but if I die without going to Europe, that's going to be perfectly fine too. Um, but yeah, you know, with some time considerations, maybe we should see what the next question has in store also.
Sure.
How you
It's kind of
feeling?
funny. This one is kind of related, which is why I liked it. One second here. Um, what drives you to make these videos? Do you get a sense of company on your adventures when you share them with us?
Oh
This is from
yeah,
Jan, by the way.
that's a great question, Jan. So I didn't expect to have a YouTube channel. Let me put it like that. Um, you know, the very first video I made, I had just watched a sort of. I was looking for Daggerfall content that was not made by Adventure Art because I'd already seen all of his stuff and rewatched it several times. So I'm like, let's try to find some Daggerfall content to watch. I'm not going to point any fingers, but basically, I watched this like new player guide that was telling people how to play Daggerfall in a way that doesn't involve the dungeons because the dungeons are just so terrible, and I'm like, I can't stand for this. The dungeons are flawed, but I love them. They are essential to the gameplay loop, and they just do what I want. You know, they provide the gameplay loop that I want. Anyway, you've seen the video, maybe. So I didn't expect to have a YouTube channel, but whenever that first video had like a couple thousand views, I'm like, what the hell? Do I have something here? Like, I expected just to put that video into the void and be like, okay, glad I got that off my chest and that my opinion is on the internet. Because if I thought it, surely there were others out there thinking the same thing. Um, so I did not expect to have a YouTube channel. I made the emergent narrative video, which is to this day still my most successful one. And I was like, okay, I clearly need to like, oh yeah, there was someone in the comment section actually who was like, my man, you have to make a YouTube series from scratch, um, so we can see how you get all the enjoyment out of this game that you do. And I'm like, dude, of course. It seems so obvious. Now that I have an audience built up, I'll do it. Because I'd already had like 2,000 subscribers by that time, and I made the Let's Play videos because I already had a bit of followers who might want to see it. Whereas if I had started with the Let's Play videos, it truly would be shouting into the void. Sometimes I'm a bit discouraged by how hard it is to like find time to record. Because even right now, like I heard Hudson yelling "Dad, running down the hallway, and his mom's probably having a hard time keeping him out of the room. So it is difficult. Um, but I really like taking you all along for the journey. And anytime any of us play games like this, it's I think we encounter a bunch of really cool moments that you want to share with people, but we don't really have a way to share it. Like you don't have the platform, or you're not recording or anything like that. And sometimes the technology of like audio issues and figuring out how to use OBS and currently using Caden Live for post production stuff. Sometimes that creates a bit of a hassle, but ultimately, I really just like sharing the stories that are created here with you all, and chatting with you guys in the comments is a lot of fun too. I hope we can find time in my schedule to stream one of these days so I can talk with you there too. But yeah, largely it is just about like sharing the stories and the adventures with you all. But also, I'm doing challenging stuff and I want somebody to witness it, you know? How cool would it be if I beat Daggerfall without dying on camera? Like, obviously, there could be some post production, but the fact that I'm going to have characters dying on the way kind of, I think, makes it a bit more honest. You know what I mean? So it's all about sharing experiences. But like I said, I didn't expect to have a YouTube channel at all. This is just something that happened. And I like the fact that I have a decent amount of subscribers. I think we're at 4,000 right now, which is more than I ever expected, I would surmise. I wouldn't ask for more than that. You know, the content I make is not very conducive to more viewership. You know what I mean? And so now I just have this tiny cult following that we just, you know, I just like the relationship that we have going here, you guys. I hope you do too. So yeah, that's where we are.
Byrithnoth. Byrithnoth? Byrithnoth. Okay. They state you've mentioned Diablo 2 before, and so I've wondered if you have a favorite class. I've been playing Whirlwind Barb and Bow Paladin lately while watching your vids. It's been a lot of fun, though Sorcery is still my favorite. Another question would be if there are any other classic RPGs you played a lot, like Baldur's Gate 1 and 2, Fallout, Goldbox games, Darklands, etc.
Oh, cool. These are great questions to start off with, and with the Diablo 2 question. That was like my childhood game, and I am still very fond of it. Um, I'm trying to find where the temple is. Do I have a favorite class? I think I was very fond of the assassin growing up, and I still like playing the assassin quite a bit. I'm a bit prone to enjoying melee characters, and if I had my picking, like as far as choosing what the rest of the people I'm playing with goes for, like I would want to play with my sibling who has like a summoner necromancer, while I play an enchant sorceress, which is the enchant sorceress casts a spell that it adds like a tremendous amount of fire damage to um, everyone in your party in a vicinity. So that would apply to all the skeletons also, and it kind of makes the glass cannon into a fighter, which I think is a really fun concept. So, assuming I could have a buddy playing with me who's like playing a summoner necro, or maybe a summoner druid would work too, I would want to play the enchant sorceress. Outside of that, barbarians who use double swing are really cool. Paladins that use zeal are really cool. All that good stuff. Um, Let's see. I actually think I'm gonna disappoint you some about the classic RPG questions because I have failed to get into Baldur's Gate and those kinds of games. I really want to like them, but I just every time I go to learn a new system, like the learning curve and the time it takes to get acclimated, um, it's time I could be spent playing Daggerfall. That's really terrible, I think, but that's just how it goes for me. Um, that said, I absolutely love and adore Fallout 1 and 2. Um, let's see, are there any others that I'm really fond of? I think Fallout 1 and 2 take the cake really as far as like your traditional turn-based games. The atmosphere in them is just immaculate. They allow the player to fail, which is just really cool. Like the first time I played Fallout 1, I just dilly-dallied so long that I didn't find the water chip in time because I forgot to click on a certain piece of the environment in Necropolis. I'm kind of spoiling it some. I'm trying not to say too much. I'm still a bit salty because like I overlooked it so hard and it led to my vault's destruction. The master ended up finding out the location of them. Oh dude, I just restarted the game and I like that. I like that it lets you fail that hard. Um what else? Fallout 2 is also really cool and for a similar reason. I also had to restart that one because I dilly-dallied too hard. Um yeah, I think since Oblivion was my first RPG, that kind of set the tone for my expectations for games. Um, as far as games that are kind of similar to like the gold box games, I haven't played them much, but I played a bit of The Bard's Tale. I really enjoyed that. I liked playing with the auto mapper off, so that I had to like map the dungeon out myself. I did not get very far in the game, but I really liked the game itself, regardless. This is a Japanese game, but Shin Megami Tensei is surprisingly similar to those gold box games. Like you might be surprised to see how similar Shin Megami Tensei is to those games. Oh, okay, we're in Sentinel, trying to find a dungeon to go to.
This is an adjacent question, but Deadcoil22 says, "Hey Micah, hope all is well. My question is, what do you think about RPGs or even just games in general using a timer system similar to Fallout 1, Dead Rising, and Majora's Mask? Is it something you'd like to see again, or do you think it's too restrictive?"
I think first off, what's up, Dead Coil? This is another person I've talked to in the comments a lot. Based Yu Yu Hakusho enjoyer right here. Yeah, I think time limits are just fantastic. I think there's a special mention for games that allow you to not have the urgency of a time limit, but I just think that they are so important for creating meaningful choices and for allowing the world to exist without the player to some level. You know what I mean? Um, let me just let's go to this place. Let's see what's going on here. I haven't played the other titles, but I mentioned a bit how I liked the time pressure that exists in Fallout. Um, and we've seen them in Daggerfall too. Like sometimes you might fail a quest, which could lead to your expulsion from a guild, or not completing the main quest, or this consequence or that consequence. But to talk about a game design perspective in tabletop RPGs a little bit, I think there's something to be said for a sort of I don't know how to phrase it. I would do this thing where the players would unknowingly set off a chain of events that they do not have visibility toward or about. So, for example, in my Sword and Planet game, the players found a dinghy that was. Let me back up a bit. This dungeon that we are exploring, it's an asteroid that like crash landed in an ocean of a planet. The oceanic currents brought the asteroid to a coral reef where adventurers could then go explore some. Okay, so you have a bunch of people exploring this asteroid, and the players eventually found where a little dinghy, like a little ship or a little boat, was tied up. Okay, cool. Grab the wall here. Um, where the boat was tied up to the edge of the like this kind of broken down hidden entrance of the asteroid. And so the players ended up finding a chest there. They took the contents of it and cut the rope that attached the boat to the asteroid and let it drift to sea. And if though the players don't really know what's going on here, but there is a faction that they're messing with, that they're meddling with there, that they like incited the anger of. And so I kind of would roll like every morning after that. I would roll like a d10 to see if that faction would confront and start searching for the players. And um, if that didn't work, I would roll a d8 the next morning. If that didn't happen, I'd roll a d6 the next morning, so on and so forth, until the players were either in a place where it didn't matter as much, or there was nowhere left for them to run, and they inevitably would like get found. Do you see what how does that make sense to you, Luke? How I set up kind of a clock for these consequences to unfold without being like, oh, you did this, so now this is going to happen for a certainty. It kind of simulates the encounter some, right?
Yeah, I think I understand what you're saying. You're saying that like the delay of something happening, but like it's supposed to happen. Like by adding by putting a clock on it, it kind of, well, I don't know. The thing that, did they know? There's no way they would have known because you're secretly rolling this, right?
Right, right. To this day, I'm not sure that the players even knew that this was happening.
Which is
Uh,
why I think that's kind of the most important part of the Majora's Mask, right? Don't you know about the clock?
That's
Don't
true.
you?
That's true. It becomes a more meaningful like inflection point. That's a good point. But in general, I'm a bit biased. Majora's Mask is my favorite Zelda game. Um, I think that urgency leads to more importance being placed on your character's decisions, and I think that having meaningful decisions is what makes RPGs fun. And so, yeah, yeah, I just love time limits.
Well, I
uh,
think I think like certainly, like if you're ever going for, like, you're trying to evoke a feeling of suspense, if there's ever the feeling of like, all I know is clock is ticking down, and I won't know what happens when the clock strikes 12, so to speak.
yeah,
Aspects and elements like that can certainly make things a lot more enjoyable, right? So,
right. Yeah, yeah. In general, just like whether you know what's coming or not, I just think they're a fascinating mechanic. It's also fun in your example there to see if the players can figure out what danger is awaiting them.
right.
Like maybe they have some sort of awareness that there's some sort of conspiracy being placed on the king, but they don't know what that is. Then it's yeah, it creates it like finding out what's going on so you can prepare for it or combat it is part of the fun.
I mean,
Um,
that's why, like, it's always, you ask for a perception check, and then it's like no one hits it. You're like, okay, nothing happens, you're fine. And it's like, wait, why were we asked to
right,
check
right.
around, right? Like,
Yeah, and this is an interesting paradigm between fifth editions and like older Dungeons and Dragons because like if I were to do that sort of thing, I would make the role in secret as the dungeon master. That way, if things start to happen without the players knowing, it does catch them off guard, or if they do something that merits their like being aware that they're about to ambush, they are rewarded for that. Um, uh, I think I've mentioned this before, but in older versions of D&D, you don't whenever the player is trying to be sneaky, the DM is who rolls for it because the thief always assumes that there's like really that they're doing well, you know. And so I like the way that ambushes can happen like that. Um, but in general, like whether you're playing Dungeons and Dragons or Majora's Mask or Magic the Gathering or StarCraft Brood War, the amount that the player knows and the urgency imposed on their situation creates so many cool paradigm shifts in the gameplay.
I mean, and
Uh,
we're talking about like the impacts of a clock. I mean, chess is completely different between a 2 hour and a 10 minute game, right?
yeah, yeah.
Everything changes on a clock, and so I think like the time mechanics, but even like the idea of adding a time mechanic in any game is as old as sports, athleticism
Yeah,
itself, right?
we
Who
want to
can
keep the
run
ball rolling.
fastest, right?
Yeah, and you want to progress towards a meaningful conclusion. Also, I think game developers currently they are really scared of the feel bads. Like if a player fails a quest and they don't get to see how it ends, it's like some players will feel like they have witnessed a personal attack, and like how dare the developers waste my time like this? But allowing for failure to occur is what makes the quest more meaningful and enjoyable anyway.
Oh, 100%. I don't know. Have you ever role played a game like Tom Clancy's Breakpoint um, or like a very like stealthy tactical like shooter RPG where like basically you get shot once or twice, you're pretty much dead, just like what would happen in real life, and so you
Not
have to play as tactically as possible, kind of thing.
not necessarily, but that kind of play style is you kind of see it in the Thief games, like Thief the what's it called, the Dark something or Thief Gold, the Dark Project is what it's called. It has a similar situation where once the enemy is like once the opposition knows you're there, everything changes.
Oh man, like because you I only mentioned because you can play these games like the action fun filled take out a bunch of bad guys John Wick style, but the moment you take out the HUD and the only way you're aiming accurately is if you actually hold your breath and aim down sight, you know, unless you have
Yeah,
a like an actual like rail laser so that you can see where your gun is. That way you
right.
can actually hip fire by actually seeing a laser on your target. You
Yeah,
know.
because otherwise it's just guesswork, right?
Exactly, like unless you have a shotgun, in which just spray and pray. But that's
Of
besides
course.
the point. The point being is you're also forced to play the game a little bit more. Like, like all of a sudden, taking down one guy is so much more scary because, like, oh, if I take this one guy out, I need to take out this other guy because if he sees the dead body, he's going to alert everyone, and all of a sudden, this is a lot more difficult for me. And I can't just John Wick it because the health
Right.
packs don't work the same way anymore. Like
Right.
so you're forced to play it a lot more, and I feel like it's a lot more punishing, but I feel the simpler tasks become a lot more rewarding, so to speak. So
Yeah, yeah, definitely. To one more little bit for Dead Coil's question here is to talk about the idea of clocks in RPGs. There's a game called Blade in the Dark, which is like a heist-based RPG, and it has neat mechanics where you're tracking the amount of heat your party is creating, and like the more heat you have, the faster the clock for the bad thing that will happen like progresses. And I really love whenever games have mechanics for this,
was
whether
it
it's
like Grand Theft Auto
tabletop.
5,
Well, it's
like
like
the whole.
wait, what? Sorry, go on.
Well, I mean, like like the stars, like the people who are going to pursue you gets escalated more
Oh,
and
right,
more.
right, right. It is very similar. Like whenever you're doing illicit things, whether that's like, breaking into some, I say illicit, I mean, whenever you're doing something that will evoke opposition, it's good to have tangible ways of tracking that opposition and escalating it also.
Oh man, it's funny you should mention that. In Breakpoint, part of your reticule will slowly start illuminating and point to the direction of someone spotting you. So when you take that reticule away,
Ah, yeah.
you have no idea when someone is seeing you and alerting you, which again has a huge impact on how you're going to play the game.
Yeah,
So,
that's fantastic. Like one of the worst things about like Skyrim is the little red dots that indicate where your enemies are. Like, give me a break, man. Just let me look for a second. Allow me to have skill for a second and awareness. My goodness. So yeah, it's a very similar thing that happens there.
and I don't know if the solution is like in this game, it's just toggleable. You can. Do you think it'd be better if all the game just gave the option in game to remove all those things, which I think it does now, right?
It typically does. Like there are mods, like immersive HUD that will let you customize that, or like I mentioned in one of my previous videos, I just play without the HUD in Skyrim to circumvent that. Um, I think the best solution is to keep the like I as a player want to know as much and as little as my character does. And so I want to interface with the things that would appear on my HUD in a way that would make sense to the character. And so like for example in Fallout you have a Pip-Boy. Maybe your Pip-Boy has like heat detectors or noise detectors that will make some sort of narrative sense for being able to see where your ops are, where your enemies are, and things like that. Um, just like
This
you
is
know, go ahead.
I was gonna say this is an excellent segue to expand on this discussion because Giant Enemy Crab is a game dev and they really like hearing your views on Daggerfall system. They want to know what works and what doesn't work, and they're asking uh, if you had to make another Daggerfall style game, what would you add to it? What are some big features slash gameplay ideas the genre just is entirely lacking? How would you improve upon it? Can you tailor that into this response or into this?
Yeah, yeah. Giant crab. I would love to share some thoughts like that. Most importantly, the thing that I yearn for in a first-person RPG right now, a dungeon crawler that at least includes dungeon crawling, is like I really like navigation as a challenge to the player. And do you see the thing in the bottom right corner of my HUD right now? That is like it's fine, it's serviceable, but I would really rather my character like be carrying around a compass, like or like have a compass that you can buy. What? So you know what I mean? Like I want to be able to check my compass to see where I need to go next, rather than the player seeing it at all times. Because my character obviously isn't walking around with the compass in hand all the time. So like, why does my character always know? Well, maybe their sense of direction is that good, right? Well, the I like whenever the player's skill is rewarded in the game, and like I just really love whenever the player and the character know a similar amount about their navigation and things like that. So I would want to integrate elements of the HUD in a way that kind of represents this dichotomy of the player and the character knowing a similar amount. So I want the HUD to be something that you interact, or the compass to be something that you interact with in your hands as the character, and I would apply that to maps as well, um, because like in old school Dungeons and Dragons, the DM does not give you maps. You make the map based on what's described to you, and I don't think that we need to go that far in video games because like the act of drawing the map would be so difficult. But if you had like an auto map that you're holding in your hand as you travel, you might stop to maybe fill in details or maybe have the program of the game itself fill in those details. Either way is fine. But what I want is to not see my map in the dark. You know what I mean? Like I want the environment around me to impact my ability to navigate. And so whenever something happens and your torch goes out and you can't see a dang thing, you're utterly lost and the darkness is like enclosing around you and you're terrified. That is like an experience that we don't get to see often enough in RPGs. Um,
So I've actually had a huge discussion about one of my friends who's like really into video games and video game development. And here's an interesting solution we came up with. I don't know how feasible this is. How would you feel if the HUD and whatever you're experiencing on your computer is completely just as the player would experience it, but your cell phone has the HUD on it? So it's like the cell phone runs in tandem with the video game, so it's on a separate screen altogether. You look at your cell phone, you're literally going to be holding up the compass to see what you're looking at, or you're holding the map in your hand through some app on your cell phone that's somehow synced to the video game.
I think depending on the game that will work, but for the style of game that I play, which is, generally a bit more medieval, I would like that would kind of lack a medieval aesthetic, you know what I mean?
Well, you just got to get like a steampunk like a phone cover or something like that. You'll be good.
That's true. That's true. But like I'd still rather not, to be honest. It's a good idea, and I know of some games that have done that. Um, but yeah, I just like to look at my computer screen. This is also like why I don't play VR games. Like I really like interfacing with a
Oh,
mouse and
really?
keyboard.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
and like I literally just like it's kind of like in Minecraft. I think that your map is on your screen there too. Like I want to hold the item as the character and look at the item as the character. You know what I mean?
Right, because once we take it out of the screen, you feel like you're also taking it too much onto Micah as opposed to your character.
Right, right. And I think there's like a lot of cool creative space for like in Thief the Dark Project, you're given a map before you start playing the game, and you pull out the map and you start looking at it there. Oh dang, that's so dark. I
You
don't know
can
if I
always
have any
Hansel and
torch
Gretel
on.
it. You have to put like little breadcrumbs everywhere.
Yeah. But what I really like about having the physical map that the character would have in the game worlds, like it can be flawed and it can be outdated, and that just, dude, that is so cool. And you can
Yeah.
actively like try to spend more money to buy like an updated version of the map from cartographers. You could set up like a cartographers guild where you're the one making the map and sending it. I think that's a bit too broad for like most games, but you know what I mean? Like the way that
It's like a whole game inside of the game at that point.
yeah, this is why I think like tabletop is king, is because you can let those ideas flourish without being confined to programming. But to add one final detail about that, like you could upgrade compasses or your compass in those games too. Like maybe one day you find a compass that has like a the north indicator glows in the dark, and that would just be a game changer, you know. Little things like that would make exploration so much fun for me. And since exploration is basically my favorite part of role playing games, it's like I'm in love with dungeons. Um, yeah, that's. I hope that answers your question, and I hope you can make a game that does those things. Because like I'm really excited about Wayward Realms. They, you know, their Kickstarter is doing really well, but I don't think that like I don't think I could just be like, hey, can you guys do this? And they would do it, you know. So I hope you take those words and it helps you a bit. Um, Same thing with the arrow counter in Daggerfall. I deliberately have the arrows like counter that's normally to the right of your or to the left of your compass down there. I deliberately have the arrow tracker turned off because I want to know as much and as little as Wades and Reeds knows about the state of his quiver. And let's see, I have 50 arrows right now, so I'm not worried about it. But with Bogart, in my last episode, I had 10 arrows all the time, and so I could count and be like, okay, I've shot about six, I'm about to run out. I need to really like scavenge arrows if I can. If I can't defeat these enemies, then I have to flee, or I have to engage in melee. And yeah, just the overlapping nature of you know, whenever the character knows the same amount as the player, or the player knows the same amount as the character, that's just where beautiful decisions are made, I think.
Yeah, I think it's difficult, right? I mean, at the end of the day, it's still a Micah with a mouse and keyboard and
Yeah,
a thief that's running around in a dungeon, and y'all, there are different things going on. That's difficult. It's really difficult for
it
game
is very
developers.
difficult, and like if you do something like that, you would probably want it to make it a bit modular, or like you know provide the option to just have a regular static HUD like people are used to. Otherwise, you might be pushing people too far from their comfort zone.
Well, you're not people, Micah, so
You're we're not like them. We are better. I'm just kidding.
no,
I hope you. I don't know how well the sarcasm comes through here. But yeah, my tastes are very hyper specific. That's like a I think whenever you're getting feedback, you have to keep that in mind. Like you have an audience that you're working with, right? So keep that in mind.
Bellini Barrio asks, "Do you watch any YouTube in your spare time? If so, what channels are you subscribed to?"
Oh man, people on my channel might know by now that I have a love-hate relationship with how much time I spend on YouTube. Um, I also spend too much time thinking about Magic: The Gathering. So, first and foremost, if you like my content, you should like Adventure Arts content as well. Watch his Mad Genius playthrough of Daggerfall. Watch his Iron Man playthroughs. You won't regret it. But besides that, I watch Paul Cheon's Magic: The Gathering draft because like I love limited as a format. So I watch uh, a lot of Paul Cheon's Magic: The Gathering stuff. I just love his way of teaching. Um, what else do I watch on YouTube? The Lubrious Snail has a cool channel for Commander. It's not really my favorite format, but he certainly has a way of deck building. And you know, I still enjoy the game, so it's not that big of a deal about the format. Um, yeah, I feel like I'm letting you down with this answer because I just watch a lot of Magic: The Gathering content right now. Sometimes I'll watch videos of people camping. Like there's this Asian guy or a Japanese guy, I should say, who has a truck that he converted into like a camper, and he'll go out and camp, and you can watch the meals that he cooks and stuff like that. Um, or I watched a video of a guy who got kind of stranded in a rainforest in Alaska, and he has to survive for a bit. But see, those things are so these are bad recommendations because I don't even remember them off the top of my head. So ultimately, I'd say, yeah, Adventure Art and
You're a
Paul
big fan of
Cheon.
Ristic Studies, right?
Oh, dude, thank you for reminding me. Yeah, Ristic Studies makes a lot of great Magic the Gathering videos that aren't necessarily about decks or like what to do when drafting. He like really approaches Magic the Gathering from a lens of like its strengths as an art, as an artistic medium, and its qualities as a cultural phenomenon. And everybody who watches this channel knows how raw and unpolished this stuff is. I gotta say, he does the whole I'm gonna edit the crap out of my videos and make it a wonderful viewing experience. He does it extremely well. Um, like the music he chooses to go with certain videos, like how he plays. like a bunch of punk rock and metal, and the Red Deck Wins video is just fantastic. Um, oh yeah, and another Elder Scrolls YouTuber, C Dot, I think that's CEEDOT, makes a lot of cool content. So check out their channel as well. But yeah, Ristic
Are
Studies is awesome.
are you a big fan of Ants Canada?
I have no clue.
It's just a guy who has a bunch of bugs and ants that he makes vivariums for, and he makes stories about them.
Okay, that's
He's
pretty
got
cool,
1.4. He's got 1.4 million views. He's a big deal, Micah.
dude. That's the thing is like it's so hard to keep up with all the different competing interests. There's a guy
Oh
that
yeah.
he's a 50-year-old Japanese man whose channel is called Ask Japan. And so I've been watching him like chat about what it's like to live in Japan. His stuff's kind of sad in a way, but it's still nice to hear his perspective on things. He's always like, I am 50-year-old Japanese man. I am alone on Friday night and I must release stress. Here's what I do. And he plays like the Sailor Moon fighting game or something like that. It's kind of sad, but kind of cute too.
What the heck part of YouTube are you on, bro?
I just like listening to Japanese people, especially whenever they speak English, and like he's actually pretty good at like pronouncing his L's and R's. So it's it's cool. Yeah, he'll play like
Hey
on a on
yo.
he'll like excuse me, got a fly in my throat, I guess. He'll like play old games on a CRT, and that reminds me of a time whenever I played Silent Hill 2, and I was like, I really need to play this on a CRT to get the full experience. And so I went to my in-laws. I found out that they had a CRT in their garage that had like spiders and cobwebs and everything, and I had to pull the webs out, and I plopped it into the floor of my spare bedroom. And at night, I would turn on Silent Hill 2 and play it on this CRT, and like I don't know, there is something special about that. I'll never have an experience quite as I wouldn't say that's like peak gaming right there or anything, but it certainly is unique, you know. I won't have an
It's a core
experience.
memory. It's definitely a core
Yeah,
memory.
core memory. Sometimes my wife would sit in the floor with me and just endure it. She doesn't really like horror, but she would want to like sit with me and watch it. So that was really cool. Silent Hill and Silent Hill 2, I cannot praise those games highly enough. Yeah, playing them with the CRT is ideal, but I actually just emulated Silent Hill 1, but I own Silent Hill 2.
I was gonna ask Percy my Sawcock Z5799. That is the name. I
I'll,
read it as best as I could.
okay.
It says, Howdy Micah. I really enjoy your channel, regular lurker and watcher here, and your perspective on life and RPGs. I find it really funny that despite being on the other side of the world, people share the same thoughts and struggles. But to get to the point, how old are you?
Oh man. Um, I wasn't expecting that kind of biographical question, but I am. How old am I?
And I
Um,
think we all know what they mean by that question, bro. I think it's more like ask the question like, how old are you? You know?
yeah. It's like, how are you still this childish, even though you're almost 30, Micah?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm 28. I'll be 29 on September 7th. Oh, here's the thing that made me stop playing Climates and Calories the first time, by the way. My Argonian is being totally destroyed by this water. Pisses me off, guys. Anyway, yeah, I'm 28 years young. I'll be 29 pretty soon. And that means that I was born in the year of our Lord 1995. And
I did not know that we were the same age.
yeah, yeah. I mean, we were in the same grade, so pretty similar stuff there. But I think that your birth year is like more important than like yeah, age is just a number, but your birth year it has a lot of cultural implications to it. You know, like did you know that I was born in the same year as Me Against the World by Tupac came out? You know, things like that. It's cool to think about the kind of things that were the cultural phenomena that were going around whenever you were born. I guess that's what I'm saying here. So yeah, I whenever I was unlocking like consciousness for the first time, we already had like a Nintendo 64, you know what I mean? And those got like age is just a number, but there are cultural elements wrapped up with the circumstances of your birth that are wrapped up with your identity, whether you want them or not, you know? And I think that's a pretty cool, beautiful thing.
They also follow the question by saying, do you have a favorite pen and paper RPG character that stands out?
Everybody's favorite is their first, I think, in many cases. Like, and for me, that's Agnor Woolsworth. He was a halfling barbarian. He was actually a fighter because he was like in second edition Dungeons and Dragons, and then we moved him over to fifth edition. But yeah, Agnor Woolsworth. He's a halfling barbarian. He used a longsword as a claymore, and he just had a real can-do attitude. Oh, I'm out of rations. I might starve. Um, yeah, Agnor Woolsworth was awesome. Uh, he's like kind of, oh, my food is getting ripe too. I should have just eaten the food. Anyway, yeah, I really like him. Trying to think of others that really stood out to me. My toxic trait as a I should stop saying that phrase as often because yeah, I spend too much time in the comments of Instagram and YouTube and stuff. But I think I remember my experiences as a dungeon master way more than I remember my experience as a character, a player character. And so on that note, let me tell you a little bit about Raul. It's my buddy Gabe's Amomancy character, and he's a were crocodile. And I just love Raul's character arcs. And he was like he's a fighter who had like a sawed-off shotgun. Once a month he would go into a blind rage of being a were crocodile.
Swag McSwaggington. Shout out that name. How did you even get that to be
It's
used?
truly inspired. Like I'm surprised it's not already taken, but there had to be a first, right?
What's your favorite modern, as in 2020 and post 2020 RPG? What's your favorite game world to get lost in?
All right. Well, first, Swag McSwaggington, I'd kneel. But after I get back up, um, my favorite. I'm not sure if you'd call it an RPG, but I really like War Tales. It's a game that involves a lot of resource management. You're basically you're controlling a group of like mercenaries as they go around trying to collect money and solve conflicts in the world's regions. It has a built-in Iron Man mode, which I selected while playing blind, which is always a good idea. Um, this is a ghost town, by the way. I should probably just fast travel somewhere. Um, so yeah, I really like War Tales. Honestly, I don't play a lot of modern RPGs, and I know like Baldur's Gate 3 is really popular these days, and that one's probably fine, but I really prefer stuff that is not high fantasy in general, which I know seems super contradictory given the taste that you've seen on my channel, but that's just how it goes. And so one really cool thing about War Tales is there are only humans in it, and I really like that. I think that with RPGs, people associate playing non-human characters as being creative, and I just don't think like I don't think there's a one-to-one ratio of like if you're not playing a human, you are more creative or something like that. Um, and so I like War Tales for numerous reasons, and that's just a couple of them. They're also asking about like my favorite game in the world. Is that right?
Yes, to get lost in.
To get lost in. Oh yeah, I had that video recently about getting lost in Skyrim, so that's a nice little tie-in. Um, yeah, that's tricky. Do I ever get lost in games? I feel like video games are actually notably bad at allowing you to get lost. So I would have to say Thief, Thief 1 and Thief 2, because they don't have a you are here indicator on the map. They just have like a paper map that your character looks at from the menus. You're actually able to get sidetracked quite a bit. And the exploration is super encouraged, especially if you're playing on expert mode, where you have to collect a certain amount of loot. So you're trying to leave no stone unturned, so to speak. Um, yeah, and as much as I like procedural generation, the fact that Thief 1 and Thief 2 have levels instead of an open world game, it ironically leads you to getting like lost and immersed to a greater extent, I think, than you would in other um, kinds of video games, just because it allows the designers, the game developers, to get really carried away with what do you call it, environmental storytelling. And it's not like they expected you to find this certain encounter, but you happen to find it, and you can like piece together a narrative from it, and I love that. Um, I obviously like Daggerfall too, but you can't really navigate in Daggerfall without going to the world map, so you don't get lost much. And Morrowind is really good for this also because you can toggle you can choose the amount of HUD you want to look at, even from the menus. Like, I often play Morrowind without even having the world map pulled up in my menu whenever I click the right mouse button, because I just want to see the road. What am I trying to say? The signposts or something like that you see on the road. I like to navigate by that stuff. So Morrowind is really good for that too.
This dungeon is really nice you're going through right now.
Oh yeah, very cozy. Yeah, I'm out of food and I'm kind of tired of punching stuff, so I figured we'd take a breather.
I think, to circle back to like the very first question, kicking this thing off. I mean, Elden Ring came out in 2022, right? I mean,
That's true. That's
I
true.
think I think it's an I think it's an RPG. I think some people agree, maybe agree to disagree there for those who don't feel that way. But you can certainly play it as a role, right? Like you can pretend. So,
Yeah, it's like a
uh,
different category of RPG than what we see here, where uh, so in many RPGs, you're choosing like, okay, am I going to overcome this challenge with stealth, magic, technology, combat, dialogue, and things like that, which is especially highlighted in Fallout 1 and 2, by the way. And those choices exist to an extent in FromSoft games, but you're always going to have to fight the boss, like whenever you get down to
right.
it. But you have to choose like factions and NPCs as you progress, and you have meaningful decisions about your character does progress, and some things can happen to your character that changes the way you operate them. So yeah, they're like, I don't really like creating a bunch of sub genres and subcategories for stuff like that, but in this case, I think that there are some like distinctions between the different kinds of RPGs that you can acknowledge too.
So here's something. Speaking on the topic of like getting lost in a video game. I don't know, man. When's the last time you played Minecraft?
Oh, it wasn't that long ago, but that's a really good point. I think I used to kind of look down on Minecraft, even though I played it whenever I was young, like in 2013 and 2014. I'm like, oh, this is just for kids or something like that. But playing on survival mode, and like a server by yourself, it's really, really cool. Of course, I would play with friends if I had any friends. But as a joke, folks. Um, but yeah, honestly, Minecraft does a great job of rewarding exploration, and it's very fulfilling whenever you find a place to explore, or whenever you find things that you didn't expect. I'm notably bad at Minecraft, but I have a yearning because of. Oh, this is another question that someone mentioned earlier. Other YouTubers I like. There's a guy that plays Minecraft beta a lot. What was that guy's name? Diablo? Oh, this is gonna bug me for a second. But I like Minecraft beta quite a bit. So if I were to replay Minecraft, it would be playing beta, just because like the aesthetics are a little bit different, and I think often people associate complexity with quality, and so it's like, oh, you have more things that you can build in Minecraft. But I think there's something to be said with providing a limited amount of resources and things you can do, and being like, okay, well, what do you do within this framework? That YouTuber's name, by the way, is Dialco. I think I'm saying that right. Dialko. One of the most heartwarming comments I saw in one of my first videos was someone comparing my stuff to Dialco's channel because he's just like playing Minecraft beta and talking to the audience in a kind of relaxed fashion, and
Did
I
you
like
say
that.
LKO?
I think it's Dialko.
What's as in the Greek Kai? What's a Kai?
I have no clue.
Do you mean K?
Oh, my bad. Dialko. Man, I didn't even know it was happening.
You said Kai twice. I'm like, is this like some kind of Greek letter or something
No,
that's
no.
put in
One
there?
time I was in an interview for a job called at a place called IKO Industries, and the recruiter kept saying IKO Industries. I'm like, what is he talking about? How can she be this dumb? And here I am being that dumb. So forgive me, interviewer and recruiter, for judging you like that. We all do it, apparently, or at least you and me. Uh,
Which I don't know. I think this is a great time to bring up. So have you played Undertale?
yeah, I played Undertale.
You Are you the little boy, or are you just reading a story? Because when I read, if I were to read a fairy tale, you read Cat in the Hat to Hudson. You're not the cat in the hat when you're reading it to him, right?
Yeah,
But you're also not controlling the cat to do the stuff. in a
Yeah,
game like in like Undertale, you know there's this little human that you are controlling, and these decisions that are being made by that human certainly impact the whole game. Is
yeah.
that still an RPG or is that just story time? And it's an amazing game regardless, but just thought I'd get your thoughts on that.
That an RPG. I think in a way it is, but honestly, I mean honestly, it's a little more linear or binary than what I'd want from an RPG. Like you're either pacifist or you're killing everything, or you're not getting a very satisfying ending, and that's a little bland to me. Um, so I'm not. I don't know. Maybe I'd call it an adventure game or something like that. But I'm actually not that. I don't put a lot of stakes into what a genre is. I think genres are helpful at a glance, but I think that generally these days we place too much emphasis on the genre. So, for example,
Agreed.
I was at a concert. Um, it's called the band is the letters are STRFKR. I don't want to pronounce it in case Hudson is watching this one day. So I try to moderate my profanity if I can. But this guy at the concert was like grilling me about how I would categorize this band's genre. And I'm like, oh, he's like, do you call them psychedelic indie or psychedelic pop or this or that? And I'm like, I don't know, man. They're just really good, and I like their music. And if you know that band at all, Luke, like you might know how hard they are to place into a genre, and that's because
Ronald,
like,
you introduced me to them.
yeah,
I think the first
yeah,
song was Ronald Fitzjaggery or
Ronald Rary
Schmitty
Robertson,
Werbin
or yeah,
Jagermanjensen.
yeah. They had just come out with an album that I still really like to this day. But yeah, they're difficult to place into a genre, and that's because we don't need to place them into a genre, you know. And the more subgenres we create, the more we muddle the waters, and the more I think what I dislike about genres is it impacts our expectations of the piece of art that we're consuming. So we go into a game and we're told like, oh, this is an RPG. This means I'll have meaningful decisions to make. This means I might have stats that I level up. This means I might have different ways of overcoming challenges. But what if your game still resembles an RPG without having those qualities? That maybe your player is disappointed at that point, or maybe they just like felt underwhelmed, or like their expectations were not met for some reason. And so I don't exactly love our obsession with genres. Like it's helpful for shopping and picking out new games and albums to listen to and stuff like that. But it's almost in genres, and our obsession with placing stuff in genres can almost be inhibitive because of the interaction that genres place with the expectations of the consumer and the
I think I think you're hitting the nail on the head. The thing is when the genre ideally you have this standalone piece of art that is categorized by what it is, but when the category supersedes what it is, then you're putting the cart before the horse, so to speak, right? So
yeah, but you don't want to do away with genres altogether just because like interacting with this within a genre is like a really it creates really cool pieces of art like um Homer's Iliad, it's an epic poem, that's a genre. It's a war story, that's a genre. Homer's Odyssey, that's an epic poem, that's a genre. It's an adventure story as opposed to a war story, that's a genre. And so Virgil, whenever he writes the Aeneid later on, he wants to synthesize both of these things and writes his own epic poem that interacts with epic poetry as a genre while like calling on the strengths of the war story and the adventure for the first and then second half. Or I guess it's the second half and the first half based on how I listed it. That's not important, but do you get what I mean about how like yeah, genres can like manage the expectations in a positive or negative way, but also like they can create a really cool framework for the artist.
yeah, but also Matt Groening made Homer Simpson,
Okay, what do we do with
and
this?
the word Homer is in both of these genres.
Yeah,
So you're welcome for that.
man, I feel like I just heard a sentence of like a sentence of all time. That's awesome. It just make
Yeah,
you sorry. Go ahead.
I'm obviously being facetious, but I'm saying that like it'll start getting ridiculous, right? Like we use these things in order to make connections, but
Oh
then
yeah,
when the connections start getting so silly like that, it's like you miss the point of enjoying it for what it was. I
yeah,
feel
yeah.
I don't
You're
want to,
right.
at the risk of sounding silly myself. I think you
No,
get my
but
point.
if you want to build on that a bit, like someone who knows about Homer's poetry, like who meets Homer Simpson for the first time. It's like this is the exact opposite of that ancient blind bard that we all know and love so well. And also, you can associate Homer as a name with like a home run. It's like, oh, this guy must be a great employee, husband, and father.
He's a
Um,
homer.
yeah. Um,
Just a guy who stays in his house all the time. A homer.
yeah. That's well done. Solid pun work. uh, how many? Yeah, we're at like how long? We're almost at 2 hours. What? So, in the interest of being focused, what else do we have?
We got about 6 more questions.
All right.
Oh, some of these questions have kind of been answered already. Like, do you ever dabble in JRPGs? Well, you talked about a few of them already, right? I mean, you can go deeper into
Yes.
that if you want
So
to.
Fire Emblem isn't always called a JRPG, and with good reason. As far as like turn-based JRPG stuff, I like Chrono Trigger a ton. I played it on the PlayStation 1, despite how like there's like a lot of beef with the menu of that game, um, and with that port in particular. But I enjoyed it still. I'm a really big fan of the Shin Megami Tensei series, specifically Shin Megami. I like Megami, sorry, Hyaku Megami Tensei, which is like a very old game that's kind of a remake of the oldest games. Shin Megami Tensei, the Famicom game, will always have a special place in my heart. I like SMT2. I like SMT even if the sloth domain is a bit of a sloth. Nope, a slog. That game is really cool because it introduces you to the high school aesthetic that you'll see in the Persona series, which is a spin-off of Shin Megami Tensei. But your protagonist chooses one buddy to go on the adventure with, and the buddy you choose impacts the worlds you go to and the endings you have access to. And I think that is awesome. And the fact that Shin Megami Tensei If is a bit shorter actually like encourages more replay value in my opinion because it's less daunting to start the game up. Um, what else in the SMT series have I played? I've played Persona 3, Persona 4, and Persona 5. Persona 4 is my favorite of those. But Shin Megami Tensei is my favorite of the series. Shin Megami Tensei Nocturne is also cool, but that's whenever the protagonist was like a demon. Like they had that thing in their brain that changes up the qualities of the character, and like I think that made for very good gameplay decisions and things like that. But it strayed away from the aesthetic that I love so much, which is the protagonist having a neurological computer, like a neural link that they summon demons with that translates the speech of demons for them. You got rid of the guns. You know, I just love Shin Megami Tensei 1 because I love being able to have a computer in my brain that summons demons while I like use a sword and a shotgun to fight hordes of demons. My goodness, they just knocked it out of the park with that aesthetic. Go look up the Shin Megami Tensei 1 box art. Like, please, like, go take a look right now. Look at that. My good, it's dripping with soul. So yeah, those are probably my favorite JRPGs. I tried to
And
get
I think
into
we
Final Fantasy, but I
I was about to
didn't.
say, I think we'd be remiss if you don't at least mention
Yeah.
Final Fantasy. And I
So
know you're not a huge fan, right? But maybe you should speak on it.
my autism impacts me negatively with Final Fantasy because I like playing games in sequence. Elder
All
Scrolls
right.
is an out yeah, Elder Scrolls is an outlier because I started with the fourth game, but yeah, I played Final Fantasy 1 and I played it and enjoyed it. I played Final Fantasy 2, I played it and thought it was fine. I played Final Fantasy 3 and I didn't really like how the characters switch up into different class archetypes as you go along. I appreciate that Squeenix or whichever producer it was like I like the way that they interact with the format in new and exciting ways in each time, but it's not always like the risk there is that you're not always going to have players that enjoy your stuff, right? And so that's what happened there.
I mean,
I
still, I mean, a lot of respect for like they are the pioneers in a lot of ways, though. But
Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
no doubt. And I think if I were to play Fire Emblem, that's my bad. I keep doing that. If I were to play Final Fantasy 4, 5, and 6, probably 7, 8, and 9 also, I would enjoy it a lot. Um, Also, the Final Fantasy theme, that is just beautiful. Like the music is just it knocks me out. It almost brings a tear to your eye with this like the beauty that it evokes, you know. I played a bit of Final Fantasy 12, but I didn't get very far in it. That's just because I had it on the PS2. So like my autism aside, I didn't mind sequence jumping just because I had access to it.
all right. Uh, on that note, strange transition. Towo, username Towo asks, From a role playing perspective, how do you feel about followers? Personally, I think it can sometimes be difficult to take a pre written character and make it mesh with your own, which is why pet companions have always appealed to me more, since you can sort of headcanon their personality.
Oh, my favorite way to have followers and hirelings in RPG is to I think followers are great as long as you can't control them too much. Um, sometimes whenever you're playing Fallout 2, Cassidy is going to shoot your main character, and you're just gonna have to be okay with that. Sulik is going to charge into the fray, and like, yeah, you can change up their tactics some, and that'll have an impact. Um, but these characters do have pre-written like personalities and histories, and like you said, there are benefits and drawbacks to that. I think that to go along the lines of role playing, whether you travel with Vic or Cassidy is an interesting role playing decision, and whether you have like Sulik in your party or not is going to be an interesting decision as well. Because you can't work for the Slavers Guild with Sulik in your party, right? Like, I don't know if the game lets you or if he'll leave you, but it just won't feel right either way. Um, but if we look at like my favorite use of hirelings is just an old school Dungeons and Dragons, of course, where you're like, well, I really need somebody to watch my horse while I'm in this dungeon. Otherwise, I might lose my horse and the stuff in my cart. And so you go out and you hire somebody that can do the thing for you. And these people are a bit more faceless, or like, unless your DM is one of those over preppers, as I am sometimes doing, these hirelings aren't going to have huge personalities, but their personalities will develop as they interact with the characters, and that's really cool. Um, Pets are also cool, but like I hate when the dog dies at the end. So uh, I don't often do like animal companions because I'll get too attached to them, and I don't want to reload, and so I can't really deal with the heartbreak of another dog dying.
Have
Uh,
you ever played Monster Hunter?
no, I don't have, but I do own the original one for PS2. I just haven't played it much.
Okay, well, like in the latest games, they have like these companions, and they're like these little cat guys who help you out. And I really like the way they can't die; they can just be knocked out, but they're gonna come back, so that's okay. But
Right,
I
and
really like how helpful they are.
yeah, and I think animals are really helpful in that sense. Like you'll see this in fifth edition Dungeons and Dragons or any game that has shapeshifters a lot. Like druids that can shapeshift and turn into cats or crows, they make really really great scouts. Or if you
Shout
could,
out Marcel.
yeah, or if you have like a boar in a party or a bull, well that locks door, like you don't even need a thief to pick it because you're just gonna ram it down, right? So there's a really cool amount of utility that comes from that. Um, but I ultimately like followers actually quite a lot. It's something that Daggerfall is lacking. Um, but from the sake of just like player agency, I have currency, and people like currency and will be willing to do things for that currency. Uh, Money, you know,
Is
and
that the
so
is that Adventure Time?
yeah, yeah, that's kind of what Jake's doing, but I'm trying not to be a sociopath about it. He kind of gets unhinged about it. But like what I mean is like from an immersion perspective, if there are people in the world who would be willing to like be my researcher for some money and be like on staff, like I think the player should have access to that. So I think followers are really they just provide more avenues for roleplay, you know?
Yeah,
I have
I
that
agree.
yeah, I have that mod in Skyrim that I actually lets you have multiple followers, and I just think it's really fun to treat Skyrim as an RPG where I'm trying to upgrade their armor and weapons. Um, if the longer they survive, the more of a salary they get. That's really fun, and so it adds a lot of cool inflection points and fun decision making for the player, which is just always a net positive to me.
So, in a related note, Bippity Boppity, give me the Zoppity asks, uh, how do you feel about in-game marriage?
Well, bibbity boppity, I just won't stoppity. I think that in-game marriage is a fine way of kind of ties in with our previous question. Like, if it's possible for the character to do, it should be an option. But to give you a little deviation, I once had a friend that I tried to play Dungeons and Dragons with me. She's not really a gamer or a nerd, but she liked the idea of a druid after I explained all the classes. Again, fifth edition Dungeons and Dragons used to be my standard before I moved on. Um, but she made a character who is a druid who is a bit of a hermit, and she cannot be made to go on an adventure. Um, and so, like, you want to make a character that has a potential to adventure, right? And so, if you're a married person, what are you doing putting your life on the line all the time? Like, you think you're Goku or something? Like, he's just a deadbeat father. So, like, you're going to be the worst spouse in the world if you're going on adventures constantly. And, it's like, I would see marriage as a good way to retire your character more than a way that than it should, like, be something your character does. Um, of course, you can always come back to home base, and I do like, having I like having home bases in RPGs where you usually come back here to store your money and resources and to catch your breath between adventures. Um, but I think there's a song by J. Cale where he says, "A drifter's life is a drifter's wife. Don't say I didn't tell you so." And, like, once you get tied up to the ground, like, you give the world its saddest sound. That's a Simon and Garfunkel song, but you know what I mean. It's like being in a marriage implies a sort of stationariness, being stationary that isn't always conducive to good role playing, um, or a good adventure. I mean, so, like, I think it can be done well, but I would use it as a retirement process. Or if your adventure takes place in, like, 25 square miles, I guess that's cool too.
So, I have a confession to make. Bippity Boppity, Give Me the Zoppity was not an actual user. That was just me wanting to ask you a question.
Oh man, well,
and
well done. I love that username.
oh yeah, I have like five other usernames that I have listed down in case I wanted to do that. Prison Mike is also on there.
Nice.
Anyways, I asked the question. Maybe one you answered the question the way I wanted, but I was also thinking like, well, I don't know what the. I want to be respectful of your viewers and of the channel and spoilers, I guess. But in Elden Ring, marriage is kind of important, and
Oh, okay.
I feel kind of like I definitely only did what I did as a role player because I was trying to get married to someone in the game.
My man has big horny going on right now.
I would like to think that I'd be willing to do those same things for my in real life wife. Shout out her, love her, but I don't know if I could take on Makilla in real life. That also sounds very dangerous. Point being that
Yeah.
it's like uh, I don't know, like that was kind of like that marriage is kind of central to like how the game actually plays out and stuff. And so, which I guess is different from like the role playing aspect of like having because don't they have marriage in like a lot of like
Yeah,
isn't it in
you can get
Skyrim
married in
and
Skyrim, yeah. And I think it's fine, but you're also, like, you're mostly going to be like a deadbeat if you are getting married in
uh,
Skyrim. Like, you'll check in once in a while and stuff like that. But unless you're just role playing a villager who got married in, like, Falkreath, and now you go to chop wood for a living, like, I think that you're going to be like, one of my biggest gripes with Goku as a character is he is just such a deadbeat. He gets to the point at the end of Dragon Ball Z where he's like, the Earth is stable, all the immediate conflicts are resolved. He can finally dedicate time to being a good husband and father. He proceeds to run off with some random kid who has potential as a fighter. I'm like, well, damn it, dude. We were so close to having a good resolution here. Um, so
I mean,
yeah,
can you have kids in Skyrim?
you can adopt.
So you can get married and adopt, and then have them in a house, and then be like, hey, I'm gonna go out to get a pack of cinnamon rolls and just not
Never come
see
back.
them.
Yeah, dude. Yeah,
Yeah, I think we need to explore some of the darker sides of roleplay on this channel every once in a while.
sure, sure. Which roleplay confession would you like next?
No, no.
I'm kidding. What else? We're
Yeah,
past two
so
hours here. Not that that's an issue, but
yeah.
what do we have next? We
So
have, like,
Hootie has a few technical questions. He
okay.
says, he likes how you play Daggerfall from a practical perspective. He wants to know what software do you use, what mods have you worked with, and what are the best that you help enjoy. Um, and then you say for people who have experience in playing RPGs, what would you have to largely consider when starting for the first time? For example, you always have your top five or so potions at the ready. and what time do you and where are they and where do you have them? Yes, yeah, so there's a lot. We can go like one by one,
Yeah,
but
for starters, we play Daggerfall Unity, and I have most mods, like my mods that I prefer, in the description of my like Let's Play videos, and so I would check that out. The most, I'm gonna forget some whenever I say this, but the most important off the top of my heads would be climates and calories, which adds survival elements to the game. Um, I like removing the level scaling from the game, but that's like a personal preference sort of thing. You know what? Let me just go to my mods folder so I can call out some really crucial ones.
sure. While you do that, I just want to shout out Hootie017 for asking the question.
Yeah. Archaeologists adds a cool faction that revamps the language skills in a really cool way. Language skills overhaul is a really great mod. Um, Honestly, anything done by Ralzar or Cliffworms or what's the guy's name? He goes by like Magic Ono on Discord, but I'm not sure. He's the author of like Kleptomania and stuff like that. Makes really good stuff. Um, but yeah, I would just like take a look at my mod list and go from there. Be wary of certain mods that will totally make the game on like not unplayable, but kind of rough. Like I had to stop using beautiful cities because I found out that it was impacting my frame rate pretty negatively. So um, yeah, just check out my mod list and go from there. As far as like you mentioned software, I use OBS for recording and Caden Live for editing. I'm not sure if that's what you're referring to, but there's that. Um, let's see. Now, as far as potions and preparedness is concerned, I actually have a video on the channel called A Role Player's Guide to Daggerfall Unity. It's not perfect and it's pretty rough around the edges, but you'll find timestamps to things like what I find to be essential for survival in Daggerfall, where I go through like all the potion and spell effects that you want to keep on you to ensure that you just don't lose your character right then and
So
there.
actually, to interrupt you really quickly, Hootie also says that he's been watching from the beginning and he's not sure what potion of free action does exactly, and are there any skills that are basically dead ends or unnecessary?
Okay, potion of free action. It's how you combat paralysis. So if you saw my very first video, you saw the Wades and Reeds got paralyzed for like 30 minutes and just kind of tanked all the attacks from that enemy. That's because I ran out of potions of free action. Now, a notable thing to point out is that the potion of free action does not cure paralysis. It temporarily negates the negative effects of paralysis. So you'll drink a potion of free action and you won't be affected by paralysis. But if the spell effect of paralysis lasts longer than the spell effect of free action, you might still be paralyzed once the potion is up, which I just think is hilarious. Um, it also like that sounds like a drawback, but it's also kind of a benefit in some ways because if you drink one potion of free action and then get like you fail your saving throw and get paralyzed by multiple enemies, you'll still be able to walk around and fight and stuff like that because the potion of free action is still alive. Um, what was the? Oh yeah, skills that are dead ends and stuff. Um, there are many that are not good, and I love that about Daggerfall because let's look at Wade and Reed's primary skills right here. Yo, swimming, that is one of the most useless piece of junk skills you could have in the game. But the thing I love about these like not great skills is they provide so much like characterization for you. Wades and Reeds is an Argonian. He's super athletic, so of course he's good at climbing and swimming. Obviously, it would have been much better for me to just like take like hand to hand, dodge and critical strike as my primaries if I wanted to be really good at fighting. But I don't like I know how to play Daggerfall, so it's going to be kind of easy if I know what's coming to me. Like I still have trouble sometimes, but like the difficulty that people associate with Daggerfall whenever they approach the game, like it doesn't exist for me because I already know how to play the game pretty well, you know. And so I'm happy to make these kind of janky characters that are really good at climbing and swimming and things like that. In general, language skills are not that great, but again, language skills are like what provide a lot of fascinating characterization. Um, like a wizard that knows Daedric and Dragonish, like that's just a match made in heaven right there. I really like playing characters that are if they're like a druid or something like that, they might know the language of harpies and um, centaurs. But the most Giga Chad skill to take in the game is, without a doubt, Spriggan, because it's one of the most useless things in the world. There are barely Spriggans in the world. They're never in dungeons, and so they're never going to really help you accomplish a quest. Um, a notable thing to point out there is that language skills overhaul replaces uh, Spriggan with like Sylvan Tongue, which lets you talk to animals or animal taming or something like that. Um, oh yeah, another thing to point out: illusion is only good at preventing detection and stealth. It doesn't do anything else. So it's kind of mediocre from that perspective, but still, like these these classes or the yeah, it's called animal taming. Anyway, um, these these skills provide a vehicle for characterization, and there are mechanical things that they do too. At my stage of like being pretty good at knowing what challenges I can overcome in Daggerfall, I value skills more for their ability to characterize more than their ability to provide mechanical benefits. So yeah, there you have it.
Um, by Rith Noth, this is the second question from this user. Asks, uh, he's been on a bit of an Arnold Schwarzenegger kick, and he was watching Predator. He wants to watch Conan soon, and said, "Hey, do you like any '80s action films? If so, which ones? If not, what would you say your favorite films are?"
Okay, those two are awesome. Predator is just like Home Alone, but with actual threats going on, and I love that. Also, Carl Weathers and Arnold Schwarzenegger, what a duo! Oh my goodness. Um, let's see. Conan the Barbarian is also fantastic, of course. If you're a fan of Avatar: The Last Airbender, you might be pleased to see that Mako, the voice actor of Uncle Iroh, plays a wizard in Conan. Honestly, I love almost anything that has Arnold Schwarzenegger in it, like Total Recall, where he's like, "See you at the party, Richter," is fantastic. Um, Big Trouble in Little China.
Oh my
Oh
gosh, I
my
love that movie.
goodness.
Yeah.
Holy, that is such a great movie. And I didn't know, like, my whole life went without watching Little Trouble. Yeah, okay. Escape from New York is also a fantastic movie. I'm a big fan of the classical cheesy action 80s movies. So I think you're talking to the right guy here. I'm a big fan of Mad Max Road Warrior and Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome. Um, Almost anything that Mel Gibson did back then was like really, really great. Same for Nicolas Cage with movies like Con Air, Snake Eyes, Raising Arizona, and things like that. I'm probably leaving tons out, but yeah, those movies are fantastic.
How did you feel about I think it was Kung Fury, which is kind of like a callback to a lot of
Yeah,
that.
Kung Fury is hilarious. I love it because, well, one, the soundtrack is great. There was a period there whenever I was like working out, I would listen to just the Kung Fury soundtrack because it's just unironically really great synthwave. Um, yeah, I liked it for many reasons. Importantly, it did not overstay its welcome. It's there for 45 minutes and it's like, okay, we're done now. It doesn't try to stretch out into 90 minutes, which some movies like suffer from. Like, this is totally like not exactly relevant, but movies like Elf, I think the first half is really, really strong, but because they have to make a 90-minute movie, it's kind of like, just like doing some legwork of tidying up the plot for the rest of the movie. So I liked Kung Fury in that it did not overstay its welcome.
All
Yeah,
right.
with a lot of those movies, though, I choose them based on the actors that are in them. Like, if it has Kurt Russell, I probably love it. If it has like Arnold Schwarzenegger, I probably love it. Nick Cage, probably love it.
Julian L asks, "How is your gardening doing?"
Oh no! This is where I have to confess that I did not actually follow up on that. Um, I still hope to do that one day, but life got a bit too busy for me with my competing interests. Right now, all I have are some, I think they're called panitas or patinas, like a kind of generic flower than my windowsill. And I have this goal of like letting that flower live for like a month, and then we'll go and pick out another house plant. And if both of those survive for a month, then we'll go out and pick out another house plant. But I don't want to get so entrenched in like buying a bunch of things and then letting them all die. So that's where we are now. I hate to disappoint you. Oh, this looks like a loaded encounter. All of a sudden, a body just appeared in front of me.
Okay, I think now would be a good time to get back to another BB Lovely question.
Yo, let's do it. Excuse me.
BB Lovely asks, "Have you ever lost your humor? If so, how did you get it back?"
Whoever lost my humor. I don't know. Whenever
There are
you're
plenty of times when you haven't been funny. I know that's true.
this is like, and it's often like this is the plight of like someone who's known to put smiles on someone's face. It's like you're battling this like idea that you're supposed to be the happy funny guy, and then whenever you're taking a break from that for a second to unwind or to relax, people are like, "What's wrong, Micah?" And I'm like, "Well, I'm just not on today, you know." And so there are definitely days whenever you have to like, it's like what Macho Man Randy Savage says: a man should be welcome to experience the full range of human emotions, and that means that sometimes we're not going to be laughing and making jokes like nonstop, and that's okay. Um, Periods of grief are like nothing to be taken lightly. Um, both of my grandparents passed away before they got to meet my son, and that still messes with me. And yeah, whenever I lost Gramps and Nana, I did not take that lightly. Like it's hard to even find humor in the internal monologue that I carry with me throughout the day in those situations. Um, but you move on. I have this crippling. It's almost like a. It's almost a downside how often I see homonyms in the world around me. Like whenever Luke made that joke about Homer, he's just a guy that stays at home. Like I often have a hard time preventing my brain from making connections, and like I'll hear a sentence that has pun possibilities, and I'll see all the possibilities and hear all the possibilities at once, and it can often make it hard to interact with people because I become so obsessed with my jokes. um, but usually that tendency to find homonyms and homophones is what brings humor back to me in times like that. But also shows like Adventure Time and The Office and SpongeBob, they're kind of like they're a sort of comfort zone. And so if I'm like going through some period of grief, I might still watch those shows and enjoy their humor even though I'm not really laughing. You know what I mean?
Yeah, there's like a familiarity or some kind of comfort, just because maybe in nostalgia is kind of reductivist, really, but um, it's familiar. That's all it is. It's just familiar. And so I definitely know what you mean there. I think that like but there's a pretty important part of this question here to lose your humor. I don't know. I've gone through. I don't know if you ever had an experience where I don't want to talk about me. I want to talk about you. Um, but have you had that experience where it's like things aren't funny anymore because that's where I'm at emotionally?
Yeah.
Maybe can you relate to that sentiment or?
Yeah, I one time right after high school, I lived in a pretty a house with some roommates. It was not a very pleasant situation for me, like for my life in general at that time. But it started off okay. You know, I was smoking and drinking and doing all those indulgent things that young people like, and I was known as like a funny guy that people like to be around. But as my as I started doing worse and worse with my probation and substance abuse, um, like it became harder to pretend like what I was doing was going to lead to happiness at all. And so people would be like, "Hey, what's wrong, Michael? What's like, come on." I remember one time at a party whenever I was still in high spirits, I made this speech about how even though there are like bad things going on in life, our circumstances all arise for us to have a beautiful night together, and that itself is something to be grateful and celebrate. And we all toasted to that, and it was like a beautiful thing. Later on, a few months later, whenever I was downtrodden and depraved, people were like, "Come on, Mikey, give a speech," and I was like, "Nope, nope, it's not happening." Like my soul was just so depleted of its joy at that time that I was not going to like humor them for a second. And yeah, that I don't I don't know. You have to. I think if that happens, it's important. Like first, it's okay to be introspective about the cause of that, and like we should like embrace that and dig into it to see what exactly is the underlying cause for the illness in my soul, and like try to get to the bottom of it. And if it's a change of scenery, a change of job, often I think it's going to be a change of the people that you keep around you. who are impacting your outlook. Like Luke and I have gone through periods where we haven't talked for like months and months, maybe even years. Um, but every time I like would call him up and talk on the phone, it's like we picked up exactly where we left off, and it's like there's some familiarity and friendship and love there that like I couldn't shake for the life of me. But whenever I was hanging around with those other people, I it's like a temporary fixation on the drugs we were doing at the time, you know? And so if you're feeling that kind of soul sickness, you should really evaluate. You know those memes where this lady is like, this sparks joy, this does not spark joy. I'm very cognizant these days about what will spark joy for me, and I try to be aware of like setting myself up for success. You know what I mean?
And can you pontificate, or I don't know if that's the word? Can you elaborate or expand on the idea, like between introspection as a means to like, okay, I'm gonna look, I'm looking inwardly because I'm trying to clean shop, little
Yeah,
circumcision of the heart here, take some of this stuff out, as opposed to inward focus where it's just kind of a selfishness or like a woe is me or despair or like a like self focus, because in introspective you're kind of focusing on yourself but not necessarily in a negative way, but sometimes it can turn into like a
yeah.
selfishness. I don't know how to describe it.
Well, there was one video in the past where I mentioned like you should take a break from listening to all the stimulation that we have from YouTube and social media and things like that. Um, and one person mentioned like you can get stuck in a pretty terrifying mental loop if you do that all the time, and that's true, you know. So there's a bit of a balance that you find here, but ultimately, I think if you give yourself periods of reflection, just to kind of take stock of your emotions and what you're feeling and what's causing them in general, whether that's through meditation or prayer or seeing a counselor or a therapist, or all of the above. If you know, if you had like my pick of things, that would be the solution there. Um, I don't know. You'd have a bit more selection of. We're almost like machines sometimes, and whenever we are troubleshooting issues with our emotions, there's always almost always some sort of root cause analysis that we can do, to identify the. So you don't want to be so introspective that like it becomes a form of narcissism and self. Um, um, what am I looking for? Is like you don't want to be totally.
Selfishness.
Yeah, it's just like you are a human being who exists in an intersection of an unquantifiable amount of external variables of people, environments, emotions, and circumstances. And yeah, I think it's okay to be introspective about like which of these multitudes of oh yeah, emotions and mindsets is another kind of thing to put on that list. It's okay to be like mindful of all those numerous things that uh that kind of amount to our life and our experiences. Which of these are causing me to love myself and like in a non-egotistical way? Um you know, which of these environments are causing self-worth to be present in me, I should say.
one of
Um,
the things that I mean, the fruit of it is usually obvious. Like I don't know, man. If the thing causes you to only serve yourself versus if the thing causes you to maybe help others or to focus on others, be kind to other people. I mean,
yeah,
as opposed to only being kind to yourself. Not that that's not important to take care of
yeah,
yourself, but
you should be kind to yourself, but often one of the best ways to take care of yourself is to participate in a community. You know what I mean? That's part of why rock climbing was so good for me. Is it like sure it had physical health benefits differently, but it was just like a place where I went to make friends. Also, whenever you go to play Legacy at your local game store, I'm
oh
sure that you're
yeah,
finding people that like your those intersections of your life are happening right now, and so let's get to know each other some. Um, and you know, in that beginner's guide to like role playing in Daggerfall, I mentioned that church can be used as or religion can be used as a way of like blending in socially. I would rather you go to church because you like are curious about a faith, of course, but like worst case scenario, go check out your local church or whatever just to see if there are people who can like if that's where you can get your sense of community, then do it and let the faith show up later or what have you. Um, but yeah, I think participating in a community either by like getting a hobby, going to church, volunteering at your local nonprofits, things like that. Those are all ways to serve your community in a way that will hopefully provide enough introspection for you to like identify what's valuable and what is sickening in the world. You know what I mean?
100%. I think that the communities provide perspective, and so when you start hearing all these other perspective or other ideas or just what other people are struggling or going through, that's what happens with me at my church, right? We share each other's struggles, get to hear into other people's lives. Then you know you're not alone, and that's a great step in the right direction. Because I think the loneliness and the desire to keep things secret, kind of bottled up into yourself, sometimes it's that secrecy that does a lot of the soul crushing, right?
Yeah, yeah,
But
dude. And you don't have to go around oversharing with everyone, but you can just
right, yeah, hundred
you can
percent
just say
agree.
like, well, I've had a hard time lately, and people will give you words of encouragement, you know. And if you're, it really depends on the environment you're in. And you know, we're gonna piss some people off by talking about church a little bit, but you know, that's just one of many ways where you can find community. And I personally believe that if you're at a good church, you're gonna find a very good sense of community. That's not gonna be true for everyone, and you know, we might get some mean comments about it, but you know, it
and
is what it
and to be
is.
fair, that's not true for all churches. Any community can be dangerous, right?
Dude,
So,
I was
you know,
traumatized by most of my childhood churches, and I'm sure
there
many
you go.
viewers in our generation are the same way. But ultimately, if you're participating in a community, you know, just get a hobby if you want to, or try out some other stuff. It's fine. But those are some examples from Luke and I. You know, your mileage may vary.
I definitely think to the core of the question, to get your humor back,
Oh
when things
yeah,
aren't funny anymore, you start hanging out with the right people. Bad company corrupts good character, but the opposite is true too. You're around the right people, the good people, and start building something special back up inside you. And I think that's a great way to bounce back sometimes.
yeah, and often other people are the people that. That's why community is important. But like you mentioned with those lovable people that showed up in your life that changed your life for the better. You don't know what kind of interactions you're going to face in a day that it will have such a lasting impact on your view of the world and your love for the like people in it. I think
Shout
it's
out, Miss Nassar. Gotta.
yeah, yeah. And Mrs. Nassar never gave up on me, man, even though I very well deserved it. Um, yeah, they're just what I'm saying. BB Lovely, have small talk with the cashiers at your grocery store. Don't be afraid to, you know, say a little bit about your day to people. Chat with people at the coffee shop. You know, it's like it might lead to nothing, but in that one episode of Adventure Time, Jake talks about open door theory, right? Where every encounter you have could be an opportunity, and it's worthwhile to inspect those opportunities to see if they're going to be fruitful for you. Now, a lot of those could lead to danger and things like that, but you can generally get a good feel, you know, relying on your empathy and your intuition a bit about who or what will be healthy for you. You know what I mean?
He was also a brick in a wall. That is Jake. So take
Yeah.
everything with a grain of salt there.
Yeah.
No, but I think you're totally right. Yeah, all this information is in the context of you make smart decisions with yourself. Understanding what that your spidey sense, your little stomach starts tingling because something's off. Well, don't go to that place. Don't hang out with those people. Don't talk to that cash register.
Yeah, yeah.
But
Intuition is a powerful tool, man. All right.
we got through the questions, Micah. Do you want to hear some of these other usernames I made up for myself?
Yeah, let's hear it.
All right, so we have Sleepy Time Soup Rhyme,
Okay.
Applejack's Car, Mountain Dewey Decibel System, and Left Butt Cheek.
Yeah, I think Dewey Decimal System, Mountain Dewey Decimal System has to take the cake on that one. Before I started going by Micah Raygun, I guess I can elaborate on that some. My middle name is Reagan, y'all. So Raygun, Reagan, a little bit of a connection there. Um, I also like sci-fi, and so it's like natural. So yeah, Micah Raygun. I used to go by Wombology a lot. You know, Wombology, the study of Wumbo. That was probably my most consistent username before I started posting YouTube videos. Um,
I'm thinking about Smokeopotamus, or what was it?
oh, Mycopotamus was
There you
one I
go,
went by a lot.
Mycopotamus.
Mochopotamus is pretty good too, though. I'm generally reformed, but nothing wrong with enjoying yourself once in a while anyway. But yeah, yeah, I really appreciate all my viewers and the little community that we have fostered here is fantastic. Um, some people in the past have asked me to create a Discord server, and I think it would be cool to chat with you all in that kind of context. But I also don't believe that I'm in a position to interact with you consistently there, and so we're delaying that for now. But I think it's so cool to get to talk to you all in this kind of context. Hopefully, one day I'll have a schedule that will allow us to stream and chat like this more often, or at all. I mean, this is not exactly a stream. And I really appreciate your questions. Luke, thank you for being the MC today. It's so good to have you on our little show here.
Thank you for
Um,
having me.
yeah, I guess we're gonna have to start a podcast after this. We're just those guys now. Uh, but yeah, maybe we can have some of our typical, our usual discussion videos, have a bit more of a dialogue in the future one of these days. That way it's not me in the echo chamber. Uh, but yeah, thanks again, everybody. I think we're going to sign off at this point. I hope you have a